Arizona rolls into town coming up for a late kick on Saturday, 8:15. That can be seen on ESPN. Of course, you can be heard on our radio station with pregame coverage beginning 4 hours prior to kick with Porter and probably a cast of characters this week. So look back on what Utah just did, look ahead to what lies ahead, and we're going to discuss the dynamic of what's going on with this situation at quarterback. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts, and I've heard from a lot of you. So we'll talk about it today. How about the night in Provo on Saturday night? A perfect night in Provo. Alternate Cougar Tails. We broke the news on that. Vanilla frosting, a whiteout. Cosmos doing backflips with a barbell. And BYU sends K-State home with a total ass-kicking. 38-9 was the score. There was a 7-minute stretch that I'm not sure I've ever seen in a football game before. And now BYU finds themselves in the top 25. We'll get to some BYU football, and we'll look ahead to what's next for them as they travel to Baylor for an early kick on Saturday, 10 a.m. on FS1. Utah State traveled to Temple and got smoked by a bad team, and we'll move on from that. RSL has clinched a playoff berth for their 4th straight year, although they left a couple of points on the table there on Saturday against Portland, allowing an extra time goal to lead to a 3-3 draw. RSL now will travel to Austin. 4 games left, 2 at home, 2 on the road, and Real Salt Lake will be playoff bound. The Utah Hockey Club welcomes in the LA Kings to Salt Lake tonight. A sentence I never thought I'd say in my whole life, but our hockey club started their preseason situation against the St. Louis Blues, a club I also know very well, and they'll have 7 preseason games before the Chicago Blackhawks roll into town coming up on October the 8th. So we are very, very busy. There is a lawsuit that has been filed by Reggie Bush that I want to talk about today. There's a new story about the Mountain West Conference trying to stay together. Is Gonzaga going to the Pac-12? Brett McMurphy says yes. John Rothstein says no. So we have some reporter beefs on the show today. So a lot to do. Haven't even touched on the national landscape of college football. Tennessee looks like they're a national championship contender. Michigan answers some questions. And Monday Night Football tonight, you get a double dip to wrap up the weekend of pro football ahead. So, or behind, I should say. A ton to do on the show today. Good guest list on this Monday. Spencer Hall, one of our favorites. We haven't talked to him all year. He's been traveling to talk college football. Will join us right out of the gates today. Josh Furlong, our buddy from KSL, who covers the Utes. If you missed Coach Witt from earlier, as we do on this show every Monday during the college football season, you'll hear from Coach Witt coming up a little bit later. And after 30 years at Smith's Ballpark, we said goodbye to the Bees here in the capital city. They're heading down south. Tony Parks will hop in the studio to talk about that on the program today. So Spencer Hall, Josh Furlong, Coach Witt's presser from today, Tony Parks, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners on this beautiful Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, off to a great start to your work week. And that guy, Porter Larson, hosting Utah pregame coverage on this radio station. I heard you pontificate on the possibility of Cameron under center, which is what we all expected, and also discussing what it meant if Isaac was the guy. What'd you make of the scene that unfolded in Stillwater over the weekend?
Yeah, kind of the assumption we operated under for most of the week, and that was, and these are, situations that obviously can go one way or the other. Game time decision is something you take folks for their word on, and it sounds like that was as close to true as you can get to in the college football world, in the coaching world, because throughout the week it does sound like Isaac and Cam split reps as though there would be a decision come Friday, Saturday. The trouble is that Cam has to wear a glove right now because he's dealing with the healing of that gash on his finger, and there's just not a great grip. I don't know if that was exacerbated by the 100+ degree weather on the ground in Stillwater. I don't know if that was, something changed on Saturday morning, but the thought going into Saturday was that Cam would warm up, he would take reps with the ones, and then, see how it goes in warm-ups, and then obviously Isaac steps in, gets the win, so ultimately that is what matters, and I think he also grew a lot as well, so some confidence in the future of the quarterback position if you're a Utah fan, but also some real questions and a lot of things you're wondering about in the present.
Yeah, well said. So we're going to get into it today with some good guests, and we appreciate your ears on this Monday. I know you have a lot of options. We appreciate it when you choose us. All right. Our first guest will be Spencer Hall. But before we get to Spencer, courtesy of our good friends at Standard Restaurant Supply. It's your tailgate headquarters. Check them out at standardrestaurant.com or stop by their location at 3500 Southwest Temple. On a Monday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to the Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studio of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show.
So Kyle Whittingham's lone job and only priority as head coach of Utah football is to win football games. Yes, there are ancillary pieces of his obligations and responsibilities to make sure the young men who he has been tasked to steward over are taken care of to the best of his ability, but no head coach can act as a babysitter for 100-plus people. His job is to win games, right? And so until Kyle is mandated, and he's talked about this, I'm not speaking out of turn here, until Coach Witt gets the email from the Big 12 and Brett Yormark, because guess what? Let me pause for a second. This is going to happen. You want to know why? There are hundreds of billions of dollars at stake for people when it comes to the availability of the starting quarterback for a football team and whether or not they know if that player is going to play. I don't love it. I've talked about it openly on the show. I think we have opened a Pandora's box with the ability to gamble on sports with such convenience. You pull up your cell phone, which you're doing for a dopamine hit anyway, and then you add the extra dopamine hit of placing a bet, and then the extra added serotonin and dopamine that comes in when you win. It's easy to see why this is a slippery slope. But we're not doing that topic today because I don't have time for it. What I can tell you is because, and college football essentially is pro sports, because sports now are in bed with gambling companies, the ability to hide your lineups are about to evaporate for everybody. But until that happens, Coach Witt is under no obligation to tell me or to tell you or to tell the other team or anybody else who his starting quarterback is going to be. And until Kyle gets that email from the conference to say, hey, we're going the NFL model, you got to report your injuries by Thursday night or Friday morning, whatever they decide, we have to know now who's available for you to play, and now it's in the bylaws of the league, and there's no other course of action. Until that happens, guys, we are going to be dealing with what you're dealing with Cam. I know you don't like it. I hear from you. I see your messages, and I talk to people around the community. I talk to season ticket holders and boosters and people who support Utah football that are pissed about this. There's no other way to put it. Now, I can't corroborate any of the accusations that I've seen going around. My best guess, without any inside information, is the most likely scenario is Cam is just hurt. That hand injury is worse than maybe it was originally thought to be. That's my best guess. Now, based off of what happened last year, and remember, I caught a lot of flack for this. I was told by somebody up there about week 3 or 4, and I talked about it on air, Cam and Brant are not playing this year, but they don't want to leak that information publicly because it would compromise the NIL deals they have in place. And here's where it gets tricky. Okay, so let's be grown-ups for a second. Here's where it gets a little sticky. Because the fact of the matter is, when money comes into play, people start to feel differently about the dynamic. Okay, for years and years and years, and I still try to adhere to this, but a rule that was kind of sometimes unspoken or spoken in media is don't crack on the college kids. They're uncompensated sweatshop employees that are part of building a massive brand, and they don't have a piece of it. So it always felt unfair to crack on them or criticize them because they're 18, 19 kids that are doing this for free. We don't have to get into the debate about the scholarship. We'll leave that aside today as well. But now the reports are Cameron Rising is being paid 7 figures to play quarterback at the University of Utah. And guess what? When that's the deal, people are going to feel differently about it. That's just the reality. Okay, I wish it was different, but that's not. That's the way the world works. So, like I said, my best guess is the information we have is the deal that's in front of us, which is he's just hurt, and we're going to see him back ready to play when he's healthy. But the good news is, until then, at least the contingency this year looks like something that you can deal with. I don't know that you can win the conference if it's Isaac all year, but what we saw on Saturday should make Ute fans optimistic for what this team can do the rest of the way if it's Isaac Wilson. Now, the preference would be Cameron Rising under center, if I could state the obvious on this Monday afternoon, because we see what the offense looks like when Cam is healthy, when he's ticking, when he's going. It's the best offense that we've ever seen that Kyle's had, in my opinion, a couple of years ago when Cam was healthy all year. And so, of course, we all want to see that again. We don't want to see interceptions. We don't want to see 3-and-outs. But the reality is, and if you've been following Utah football for a while, you know that this is just kind of the deal with Coach Witt. And he's built one of the preeminent college football programs in the western part of the United States based off of his ethos and his culture and his buy-in mentality. And I know you'd love to see 47-40. Cam Rising goes for 440 and 5 TDs, and it's a great back-and-forth game. That's not really who Kyle is. It's not really who his pop was, and I'm not sure that it's ever really going to be who Kyle is permanently unless the solution is put in front of him that we have the ability to let it rip and open up the offense a little bit. But you can't blame them for not wanting to do that with an 18-year-old under center who just enrolled in April. If Cam was under center, it would look different. Nobody's arguing with that. But they're doing what they have to do to win football games. It's a top 10 team in the country, and they just went on the road to Stillwater and won what is most likely going to be, on paper, their hardest game all year. Now, we'll get to the BYU stuff, a great night in Provo for them, and maybe Utah-BYU on November 9th is going to hold a ton of weight, which would be so fun. I say it all the time. The best BYU-Utah games are, and always have been, when both teams are really good. And I still think the final game of the season at UCF is tricky. Iowa State might be better than anybody thought. Like, there are some pitfalls along the way. And it's college football, week in and week out. It's the most unpredictable sport. There's no way around that. I'm not saying that the Bill Riley mullet watch is going to end in a Bill Riley mullet. I'm saying Saturday was a big step in the right direction, and it was a Coach Witt type win. The defense was dialed in for 3.5 quarters until they did what they do oftentimes, and that is go to prevent. Let's just run out the clock. Let's get out of Dodge with the win, which, by the way, back to the beginning of the diatribe, it's Kyle's only job. It's not his job to let you or I know who's going to play quarterback for him. It's not his job to appease a portion of the fan base that is continually frustrated with the lack of information out of the program. I get it, and I hear you, and I don't think you're wrong. I'm saying Kyle doesn't give a rip, and that's one of the good things that's great about him. He's got his head down. He is doing what he has to do to prep for next week to get another win because he knows that if he keeps doing that, the promised land this year is in front of them. Mark Schleybaugh and Kyle Bonagura put out their bowl projections, their new bowl projections this morning. They have Utah winning the Big 12 as the 4 seed in the CFP, playing Georgia in the second round in Glendale. That's pretty awesome. So I understand the frustration today about this lack of information, and I don't even think that you're wrong about it because it is frustrating from time to time. But Saturday was nothing but good news because last year, when I gave you the information that Cam was out and he wasn't playing all year, you called me a liar, you called me tinfoil hat, you didn't believe me. Fine, that's fine. I was right, you were wrong. It didn't look good all year because it was Nate, then it was Bryson, then it was Bryson and Nate. They still won 8 games, which is nuts, quite frankly, with all the injuries they had. So if the deal is Cameron is being very careful with his health to preserve a potential pro career, and we're going to see more of Isaac Wilson, at least what we've seen so far indicates that it might be all right. Now, final thing before we catch a break. Remember, after the Southern Utah game, which didn't look great for Isaac when he was thrown in there right before halftime, I said that week we're probably going to need more from Isaac if Utah's going to win the Big 12. There's probably going to be a scenario in play where Cameron misses more time. And in order for Utah to stay on the path towards a Big 12 championship, there's a good chance Isaac is going to be thrown in there. And when he is, it has to look better. Here's the deal. It has. Now, yes, OK State, cover 0, gave Isaac a bunch of space. All that's fine. He's 18 years old. He just enrolled in April, and he's led Utah to 2 wins, and he just became the first freshman quarterback in Utah history to beat a top 15 team on the road, which they did against Oklahoma State. All right, real quick, BYU, my goodness gracious. So you got to give BYU a ton of credit. It was potentially the most unique combination of fortune and skill that I've ever seen in college football. You know, it's funny. my parents live back east. They're big BYU fans. And so about 4 or 5 minutes left in the second quarter, it's a close physical game. Neither team's really moving the ball that much, but it did look like BYU stood up to K-State's physicality. And my mom called and she said, I've got to run to the grocery store because we're having a big family dinner tomorrow. And I'll just say this for the people that know. If you know, you know. Saturday's a special day. It's the day we get ready for Sunday, right? So she goes to the grocery store, gets back, and BYU's up, like, what was it, 34-7 or something, 34-6? Like, BYU scored 31 unanswered points in 6 minutes and 25 seconds of game time. Scoop and score, pick, touchdown, and Parker Kingston had the most ridiculous punt return I've ever seen in my entire life. According to the broadcast, he ran 137 yards after botching the attempt. And I loved Kalani's quote after the game. He said, quote, "We can block for him without all that drama." He turned a horrible mistake into a touchdown. And look, BYU, we had A-Rod on last week. And I said, what makes you more confident in your 3-0 this year juxtaposed to last year? And he gave a really great answer about how connected they are and how the belief there is different. And so far, you have to give them credit, even though Saturday night was just a confluence and combination of great luck combined with prepared skill that led to potentially, in my opinion, the most impressive win of the weekend in all of college football. And now BYU and Utah are both ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2022. And it bodes well for an exciting year of college football coming up in the marketplace. All right, coming up on the other side, we'll catch up with Spencer Hall. We'll continue the college football conversation. Going to bring in Josh Furlong from KSL. If you missed Coach Witt's presser from earlier, some really good stuff. So stay tuned for that. Kyle, I don't know. I like it when he's in more of an honest mood. I don't know if it's tempering expectations, but you're going to want to hear that press conference. And then we'll bring in Tony Parks coming up in just a little bit as the capital city says goodbye to the Salt Lake Bees. And they move out south to Daybreak. So stay tuned for that. Pro football comes to a close coming up tonight with Monday Night Football. You have the Jags and the Bills, then the Commanders and the Bengals. So stay tuned. You can hear a little football on our station before we say or after we say goodnight at 6. Joining me now, Dr. Angela Peterson, Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, how are you?
I'm good, Spence. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So I'll start with the two things you've helped me out at Lifestyle Men's Health, which is testosterone therapy and the vitality peptides. They both have made a massive difference. I've been on testosterone about a year and the peptides for about 3 months. What can you tell our listeners about the benefits of testosterone and vitality peptides?
Well, the benefits are really life-changing. Men today have very low testosterone levels, and it's caused by a lot of things in our environment, our food sources, our activity levels, so on and so forth. But you can do things to improve your testosterone. The first step is to get it evaluated. And then the second step is to get on some sort of replacement routine. And we can do that at Lifestyle. We can do hormone pellets that are inserted into your love handle area that is a slow, sustained relief, or we can do injectable testosterone, and that works just as well. But it really helps give you better energy. It increases your libido. It helps you build muscle mass. It improves brain fog, which a lot of people complain about. So the benefits are really, really life-changing and super important. And they also are disease preventative. Being on hormone replacement therapy is going to save you from dementia. It's going to reduce your cardiovascular risk. And it's going to, help build your bone mass so you're not, old and crippled.
Let's bring in Ken Baird now, patient care coordinator and Dr. Peterson's business partner. Ken, tell us about your experience.
I'm going to read a testimonial that actually kind of mirrors mine. I'm a 66-year-old former collegiate athlete and once thought he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. He never, ever thought he was going to lose his muscle mass or his libido. Then one day he looked into the mirror and saw his dad looking back at him. Now he had a furniture body where actually everything dropped from his chest to his drawers. He had no longer appealing, to himself or his partner. And worst, didn't have the energy to do anything about it. Then he met Dr. Angela Peterson, where she recommended testosterone for the energy and strength and stem cell therapy for his pride and joy. The results have been beyond his hopes and expectations. He works out 5 to 6 times a week. At 66 years old, he's lifting like he was in his 30s and 40s. His appearance has changed noticeably, where a few have given him, flattering, saying that he's looked better. Ripped old man. His size, his strength, his stamina increased himself, and his partners are thrilled.
There you have it.
Well, that's tremendous. Dr. Peterson, what's the offer you have for our listeners today?
So for new clients coming to our clinic in Utah, our grand opening special is 50% off our signature ED treatment with stem cell therapy.
All right, guys, today is the day to give them a call. Now, I'll give you the phone number. It's a rebrand. It's called Lifestyle Men's Health. I would recommend calling and then asking questions, because both peptides and testosterone have made a big difference for me. I'm in my mid-40s. Here's the number, 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203. Thanks. We'll chat soon, okay?
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That was a lot. Spencer Hall's going to join us coming up next, right here. ESPN 700. All right, big college football weekend behind both BYU and Utah with massive wins, both ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2022. Been a minute since we caught up with our next guest, but one of my favorites to talk college football with, Spencer Hall on a Monday afternoon. Spencer, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're good out here, man. We're good out here. What have you been up to as you've been traveling all over the world? What's the last few months been like for you?
Busy. I did. College football's obviously busy, but over the summer, in the spring, I went to both the 24 hours at Le Mans. Never covered that before. France in the summer, never a bad thing. It was delightful. I got caught on international television on camera, which my followers let me know about immediately. Fortunately, I'm very handsome, so that wasn't a problem. And then I went to Mongolia for 2 weeks and wrote a story about that.
Did anyone recognize you for who you were for real on your international travels? How far does the Spencer Hall footprint reach?
Le Mans, I had a couple of people who did, which surprised me. This may not surprise you. No one in Mongolia did.
Yeah,
not one.
I wouldn't think so, but I honestly was just curious because you're one of one. So, those of us that know who you are and have watched you for years know when you walk in, but maybe not all that big in Mongolia. I think you're the one I heard coin the phrase bro famous. I think you were talking about Van Pelt, like bro famous.
Yeah, bro famous is a blessing, first of all, because it means that people support what you do. It's lovely.
For sure.
However, it's not exactly the first degree of famous you would like to be. I think the first degree of famous you would like to be, if you have to be famous, is you want to be somebody who's famous for their voice and not their face, because nobody would recognize you. But bro famous is disadvantaged in that if you're a younger man, it would not get you the kind of attention you might want. In terms of maybe if you're a heterosexual male, you would want ladies to be interested. When you're bro famous, dudes just want to hang out, and that could be lovely. That could be lovely, but at times you go, there's very little benefit to this.
Yeah, it's so well put. I one more thing here, nobody cares, but would you consider yourself bro famous?
No.
Okay.
No, I know bro famous, and I've seen bro famous, right? And I'm not bro famous, right? I've hung around bro famous. Like right now, the leader in the clubhouse for that would probably be, I don't know, Pat McAfee, somebody like that.
Okay.
That would be Van Pelt has always been bro famous and is very gracious about it in a way that I find very admirable and probably couldn't replicate myself. And I think bro famous also includes, if you have any like local legends, if you have anybody who say was a star for the Utes who maybe didn't make it in the NFL, you're still bro famous, man. Stetson Bennett at Georgia, that's definitely a guy who's bro famous.
I'm going to come up with the comprehensive list of the most bro famous people in our market before I sign off air, but that's 4 hours from now. So 3 hours, 20 minutes. So let's get into some college football. Spencer, when you and I last spoke, we were discussing a Utah football team that had been just ravaged with injuries. They still won 8 games a year ago, but you know the deal. Cameron Rising comes back. Brant Keithy comes back. And it's only 4 weeks, but most people, including everyone out here, believes this team, regardless of who's under center, is now the class of the Big 12, a comment that draws the ire of a lot of Big 12 fans. But what do you make of the start of the season for these Utah Utes?
Well, you scored 22 points against Oklahoma State. And if there's one saying I believe in, it's this. If Utah scores 22 points, it really doesn't matter what else happens. They're probably going to win. I don't ever put Utah in the category of somebody like Iowa who plays anti-offense. I would put them in the category of a team that has to emphasize all 3 phases of the game because of where they are nationally and the kind of program that they're running, right? And the kind of recruits that they get. Not that you don't get good recruits. Make a joke if you want about the quarterback position because Utah's had to scrap together some starting lineups over the years. But go look up Isaac Wilson. I had to do this today. I'm writing the weekly summary for my newsletter, Channel 6, and I'm about to send that out. And I was going to make a joke about, your typical 2-star, 3-star scrappy Utah Ute. Isaac Wilson's a 4-star recruit.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Cam Rising, who I think everyone likes to celebrate, is the kind of like scrap iron quarterback who just does a little bit of everything that they need to do in order to win. When he's healthy, that dude's still a 3-star recruit coming in. So the quality of talent is much better than people think, even if the results still look largely the same. And that's not damning the faint praise, by the way. 4-0. You're 4-0, and you're 1-0 in conference, and the new neighborhood looks a lot like the old neighborhood in terms of how you're living in it.
What does a win at Stillwater say? I've never been there. It looked like a pretty exciting atmosphere, and maybe Oklahoma State, was preparing for one U team and saw a different U team. They did make it interesting at the end, but going to Stillwater, first Big 12 experience in that atmosphere, what does that say to you?
It says to me that they're pretty composed because that is an intense little bandbox of a stadium. It is a good crowd. They're loud. It's not a layup. It's not a particularly easy road trip. I have watched teams that I believed were better than this Utah team, and again, that's not damning. That's not a condemnation of them at all. I watched a really good Baylor Bears team come in with an offense that was scoring like 1,000 points a game, and they got skunked on a really cold night. The weather can be weird there. This is an aside, but I was watching people buy turkey legs just so they could hold on to them and keep warm. They weren't even eating them. They were just using them as $12 hand warmers. So it's not an easy environment. What it says to me, and the most important number from that game for the Utes, is this. It's standard operating procedure in terms of how you guys handled the opponent's run game. Ollie Gordon could have gotten loose on you, could have dictated the pace of play, really could have done the thing that he's done to so many other teams, and instead you held him to 42 yards. He only got 11 touches because Utah got on them real quick. As long as you're doing that, then you're going to have time to, if you'd like, wait for Cam Rising to come back or thrive anyway and watch Isaac Wilson mature.
So one more thing here, then we'll move on to some other bigger picture topics nationally. I'm just curious because I started the show with this. There are a lot of people here locally, and I'm not doing the whole hey, I saw one tweet. No, there are really a lot of people out here that are starting to become a little frustrated with the Cameron Rising lack of information from the team about whether or not he's going to play. Now, I've always maintained until Coach Witt gets the email from the Big 12 or whatever conference they're in that you now have to do this, he's going to continue to not do it. Now, I don't love that sports is now in bed with betting apps and gambling companies. I also have a read for Prize Picks later, so I guess I'm a hypocrite. But ultimately, because of the hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, because of the information about who is your quarterback, at some point, it does feel like college football will go the way of the NFL and make these coaches report their injuries. But until then, I understand why Kyle, kind of rolls like this, and I don't think he's alone. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that dynamic.
Yeah, they're going to have to force the coach's hands at one point, and that hand can really only be forced with a kind of – you have to not have a relationship with the wagering community and industry and at the same time have one, because so many things are contingent on whether somebody is injured or not. I am not sure how that's going to work. I can only point out that eventually it will have to for a lot of reasons, including to continue the impression that we have an integrity of game. That's a big one, because you can't really – when you see the NFL come down hard on anything gambling related, it's because the value of the game starts with the foundation that we all assume that this is a fair game. So that's the macro picture on that. The micro picture is that they may not really know what when it comes to Cam Rising status. Everyone is really tired of hearing it, but it still might be true. I am less interested in that long term than I am more about the future of, okay, can you go ahead and get the next guy ready? Can you prepare him? And, based on what I saw, he threw a couple of picks, but young quarterbacks are going to do that. And I'm really interested to see whether they can take this kid and really mold him into something productive, something that Utah really hasn't had in a while. I'm Cam Rising can throw, but would you describe him as a thrower?
Not entirely, no. And in fact, Scott Mitchell, who obviously was one of the best to ever do it here, is on our broadcast. He talks often about how Isaac's balls just look – that's a weird way to say that. The way Isaac throws the ball
sure.
is a cleaner way than Cameron does, and he can make, even some more aggressive throws than Cam can, even though Cam's, the upperclassman who's had all the success, and Isaac's only 18.
Yeah, he's 18. He will improve. I'm not sort of casting Isaac Wilson as your classic thrower. I believe he's like 6 feet, if that.
I've met him. If he's barely, he might be 6 feet. Spencer, is how I'll put that.
Yeah. I'm like, when somebody says, when you see a quarterback listed at 6 feet, you can take off an inch and a half.
Sure.
He's probably 5'10" and a half, right?
Yep.
Which is fine at the college level, and sometimes even at the pros. You can be successful as a quarterback on the shorter end. But, even if you have a short team quarterback, to me, that's the interesting project with more upside for them. That's, looking at that, because I know what you have in Cam Rising when you have him.
So do you think they can win the conference if Cam's not right all year? Can they win the conference with Isaac under? So you think they can? Okay.
Yeah, no, please. We've seen Utah pile together assorted parts into successful teams. And right now, given the way the defense is playing, and given the way Micah Bernard is running the ball, I think one can go ahead and assume that the quarterback, whether it's a project or whether it's the veteran presence of Cam Rising, I think you're going to be okay to good either way. And right now, we're coming out of week 4, going into week 5. What do we know? We know that the teams that can stop the run, have effective offensive and defensive lines, those are the teams that are bankable right now. Tennessee is an example of that. I think Georgia is an example. Texas is certainly an example of that. If you have all that, then we can kind of plug and play at the quarterback position and just assume and hope that, one of our two options works out. Texas is the weirdest example of that, because you go, I don't know, the backup might be better.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good point. I wonder, because you see all the projections this time of year, and it's just good fodder and content. Do you think Utah has to win the Big 12 to go to the CFP? Is the Big 12 going to get one team in the CFP?
I think they are. So they're going to get one. And if they're going to get two, it would require, I think, some really fascinating things to happen in the Big Ten and in the SEC. That to me is where you go, okay, once we start counting up slots, right, then you have your 4 conference champions. I think that's the way you would prefer to go if one can go. And I think based on what I've seen around the Big 12, they're definitely more than capable of winning this conference. If they're the second in the Big 12, you would hope that they would only have a close loss to the eventual champion, something like that, because narratively you want it to make sense. I will also say you don't want to plan on that. That is not your plan. Go ahead, win the conference, get that out of the way, and then we can talk about, how we manage to talk ourselves into a second Big 12 team.
Spencer, have you ever had a cougar tail in Provo?
No, never had one.
Okay. You will very much enjoy it when you have the opportunity to do it. And on Saturday night, it was the perfect Provo night. It was a whiteout. They had an alternate cougar tail with vanilla frosting instead of the classic maple, and they undressed K-State. Now, I'm not sure. It was late, and so, I grew up on the East Coast. Nobody was watching it outside of my family members who love it back there. So I don't know what the rating looked like, but it was a statement win for a team that was picked to finish 13th in the Big 12 preseason, and the Vegas over-under was 4.5, and they've already hit 4 wins. So maybe we have 2 elite college football teams in our market? Question mark? Give me your thoughts.
I would not classify BYU as elite for one reason, and it's this. It's not really their fault, by the way. It's because K-State imploded so hard.
Yes, they did.
Because this game, it is a deceptive score. Go look at the box score. If you look at the box score, a lot of the numbers favor Kansas State. There's one that doesn't, 3 turnovers. And those turnovers happened. The entire game hinged. It was 6-3 going into the last 2 minutes of the first half. And in the last 2 minutes of the first half and in the first 2 minutes of the second half, it flipped to a score of, I believe, 24-3 off 3 turnovers. BYU very advantageously took all of those and turned them into points. So it is a deceptive score. It's great that you can do that. It is. But I also know this is the kind of game that coaches like, because they go into it and they can still point. They go, we won, but I still have a lot of work to do. I still have things I can pick on. I still have things that I can teach that we can improve. So beat the crap out of K-State. That's awesome. BYU still has a lot to work on.
Last thing that I'll set you loose. As of now, obviously we've already talked Utes. If you want to throw BYU in the conversation, that's fine. I talked about this earlier. Just based off of what I've seen in the conference so far, it does feel like there is one tier at the top, and I feel like it is Utah. But how many Big 12 teams are you comfortable today, Spencer, saying that you think can win the Big 12?
Based on what we weekend out of any of these teams, I have Utah capable of it. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. Okay. I think that UCF still might be in there just because it's a good coaching staff, very clever, and KJ Jefferson is showing signs of coming around at quarterback. So really it feels like, and I don't want to bet on Cincinnati because, man, they can be so shaky. Like the Satterfield factor there is just scaring me off. So I would say two. Right now it's between Utah and UCF for me.
All right, my friend, before I set you loose, where can people go get the newsletter and all the work that you do?
You can get the newsletter at Channel 6. It's in my Twitter bio at EDSBS. You can also find me at the Shutdown Fullcast. And, hey, if you listen to Formula One, you can check me out on DNF. That is our Formula One podcast.
Thanks, buddy. Been too long. It's always illuminating. Be well, okay?
All right, likewise. Thanks.
All right. Spencer Hall, one of my favorites, talk college football with, as he referenced, on Twitter at EDSBS. Before we catch a break, we welcome in Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday. How are you?
Happy Monday, Spence. How are you?
I'm well. So we've had a lot of ED treatments offered in the market that were not necessarily effective, and I'll leave that there. Your ED treatment is different than what's been offered in the market. So tell us why it's different and about some of the results that you're seeing.
Well, we're seeing really dramatic results, but our therapy is based on having your body heal itself, through a process called regeneration. And we're using stem cells to treat ED that's going to help to improve function, and it's super effective.
All right, let's bring in Ken now. Ken is Dr. Peterson's business partner, and he does a lot of work with Lifestyle Men's Health. Ken, tell us about your experience.
Well, as I mentioned before, this is one of those conversations hard to have. We're losing our performance issues, our confidence, how our partners react to us, and it's not an easy subject. But the point is that this can be fixed, and it can be fixed naturally, like Dr. Angela Peter said, with these stem cells rejuvenation. So it actually just helps the tissue to heal itself and to accept more blood, which will create the results that they're looking for.
Dr. Peterson, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who call you today?
Well, we've got a really exciting special offer. We are promoting our signature erectile dysfunction treatment with 50% off as we relaunch this new location in Utah.
You should also ask Dr. Peterson about the two things she's helped me with. That's testosterone therapy and also Vitality Peptides. Both have made a massive difference. I'm a man in my mid-40s, so if you're kind of in that neighborhood, it would be for you. Here's the number. It's 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203. Thank you. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks,
guys.
Spence.
All right, Josh Furlong is our guest. Coming up next, right here on ESPN 700. Going to let you hear from Coach Witt coming up in just a little bit. If you missed Coach Witt's presser from earlier, we'll bring it back on a Monday afternoon, as we are wont to do from time to time. Tony Parks rolls by as well. Those of us here that live in the capital city, we said goodbye to the Bees after 30 years downtown. So we'll bring Tony in. But let's talk more Utes. Let's talk more college football. Our buddy Josh Furlong from KSL on a Monday. Josh, happy Monday, man. How we doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good, buddy. Appreciate the time. So just a macro question. Is it possible that we have 2 elite college football teams in our state?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. I mean, I think what BYU did to Kansas State, I think that's really impressive. I still don't know if we learned a ton about their offense against a really tough team because of all the turnovers, but I think it's safe to say that their defense is pretty impressive, and it's fun to be able to have a second team in the state that is ranked and doing well. So I'm curious to see the trajectory of both these teams and kind of how it all shakes out. And if it still goes well, I mean, that matchup between the two teams at Rice-Eccles Stadium is going to be pretty electric. So you have to like that, as just a fan of goodness, good sports in the state, right? And so I think it's really a fun opportunity to be able to have both teams that are doing really well.
So, Josh, I'm sure because I've heard from a lot of people both in real life, and I try not to live on the internet, but, it's part of the deal. So you get emails, you get DMs. Very frustrated with the situation, with the lack of information about Cam Rising and Utah football that, of course, a little PTSD from a year ago. And I started out the show today with a simple opinion that until Coach Witt is told that he is mandated to report injuries like they do in pro football, he's just going to keep doing this. His job is to win. It's not to tell you or I who's playing quarterback for him. I understand the frustration, and I do think because of the dynamic that sports are now in bed with gambling partners and gambling apps, at some point there will be enough noise made by business partners of college football to say, look, there are hundreds of millions of dollars on the line now based off of who is your quarterback. At some point, they're going to be mandated to do this, but until they are, they're not going to say a word. So give me your thoughts on the entire dynamic. I get the frustration, but I also understand why it is the way that it is.
Yeah, as much as fans want that information, and trust me, I want that information as well, having to spend each and every week trying to sit here and find the status of the starting QB is not that ideal. Even putting in an injury mandate, I don't know if it's going to change a ton, especially with what they want to do. I mean, if you look at, let's say, the NBA or the NFL, yeah, you're going to have certain metrics to say, okay, you have to tell it by this time, but most of those times are still a game time decision. So if Kyle wants to make Cam a game time decision, there's nothing that changes from this Saturday, right? They're going to throw him out there. They're going to see if he can go. Maybe they have to make the declaration an hour before instead of 5 minutes before. But it's one of those things that's going to be exploited no matter what happens. And so it's just kind of the nature of things, right? I mean, I think they were really optimistic about Cam and being able to get out there, not being able to understand fully how he was going to heal after stitches get out of his hand is tough. And that's why you started to see Isaac getting more reps as the week went on. It's just a tough situation because on one hand, I understand people say it's gamesmanship by Whittingham, and to some extent it is. But I think they really just wanted to see how he would respond in practice, or not in practice, but in the pregame warm-ups. And that's when you make your declaration, right? So maybe it forces them to shift this into Friday or some other day. But I don't know that it's really going to go that far away. It's not really going to change anything. Teams are still going to have to scheme for both quarterbacks or whatever injury may be. It just might give us a little bit more clarity, but I don't know that it gives us a ton more.
So, as I said earlier, this is where I'm at with it. There's a real chance, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist in this space or other spaces. I just don't have the energy to waste my time doing such things. But if I had to guess, he's hurt, and they're trying to get him back. And when he's healthy, he'll be back. I mean, I can remember anecdotally a number of years ago when Carlos Boozer was here, and Jazz fans were up in arms about his inability to stay healthy. I had a conversation with Scott Layden, who was Jerry's assistant at the time, and I said, what's the deal with Booz? He's like, he's just hurt. He's hurt. That's all it is. He's hurt, and we're trying to get him back. That's my best guess here with the Cam stuff. Any insight as to where we're at with the progress and potentially who could be under center coming up Saturday against Arizona?
Yeah, I think the hard part nowadays in college football is, somebody like Cam is going to get a lot of money from NIL. And so when he starts missing time, that just kind of causes problems with the fan base that they want to see him play and for good reason. And so then he starts taking a lot of the heat, like, oh, well, he's just sitting out because he can get paid either way. The reality is he is hurt. You saw it when he was warming up. He had his glove on, and he was throwing fine in terms of being able to make the throws. There were, he got it as far as, I believe, like 45, maybe close to 50 yards, being able to throw in the air without actually people rushing him. But you could tell that there just wasn't, some velocity there, some zip to the ball. He kind of had a different mechanics with his arm where he was just trying to kind of push through the pain, almost like he was trying to get there. It didn't look like it caused him discomfort in terms of pain, but he was just a step slow. And so, I think there's a world where Cam can play, right? Like, I think he can go out there and he can play, but they're looking at this and saying Isaac is in a spot where, is it ideal to have him against, a ranked team in an opposing venue? No, but he's going to give us a much better shot than Cam is. I think if this was last year where you had somebody like a Bryson Barnes or a Nate Johnson or something, maybe you push it a little bit more. Maybe you say, okay, Cam, we're going to put you out there. We're going to rely heavily on this run game and make you just throw a couple of short passes type thing. But I think they have the luxury now of saying, we've got Isaac. He's going to make his mistakes. He's going to have his problems, but he's still so much better than what we've had. And then our defense is going to, fix everything else up for us. So, I don't know that this is a situation of Cam saying, he doesn't have the moxie to play or he's just kind of resting out. No, I mean, this is a guy that's a competitor. You see him on the field. Literally all the complaints that people have about him is he's too much of a competitor. He wants to be out there. He wants to get in the thick of it. So why can't it flip for him when he's sitting out, right? Like, I'm not here to defend Cam by any means. But at the same time, it's a guy that's hurt. He's trying his best. He wants to be on the field as much as anybody. It's just a situation where he's just not at 100%.
Some good points in there. I do want to follow up because there's always been kind of both an unspoken and spoken rule in media as it pertains to college athletes. Like, look, these are amateurs that don't get paid, and they're essentially employees in a sweatshop that's being built on their backs. They don't get a piece of it. So it always felt a little bit unfair to go at like a 19-year-old who ultimately isn't being paid for what he's doing, and he's just doing it. Obviously scholarship, that conversation's a different deal. But to your point about the money, like it or not, Josh, as you know, it does change the way people are going to view your lack of availability. If the reports are true that Cameron Rising is making seven figures to play quarterback for Utah, and a lot of that money is coming from season ticket holders, boosters, and alumni, guess what? Those season ticket holders, boosters, and alumni, they expect you to play. They just do. Now, again, I want to reiterate my point that I believe he's hurt, so that's the deal. But what are your thoughts on the way that the money infused, and by the way, I'm all for it, always have been. Years ago, before this was even a reality, I was on this stuff. But how would you articulate the way that money being added to the equation for college athletes has changed the way that people view their obligation?
Yeah, I think this has always been the problem, right? Not that they're getting paid, but it now gives people the willingness to say that, a player is just doing it to milk it for the money. There's now an embedded excuse for people to do certain things. And, look, I get it. Like, I'm not over here forking over, thousands of dollars to be able to see an athlete play. So I get it. But at the same time, you can't tell me anybody at Cam's level or any of these other players at this level, if they're not that engaged in the system, they're not even getting those types of contracts anyway. There's people that love football, they love basketball, whatever their sport they play, and they're going to try their hardest to be there. There's very few, especially at the collegiate level, that are just going to take plays off at that level, right? Like they're in there, they're trying, they have aspirations for other things. So, Cam always had a long shot to get to the NFL. Maybe there's a chance he comes in as an undrafted free agent. All of these things hurt his ability. Now, if he doesn't think he's ever going to try out for that and he wants to collect a paycheck and do whatever he wants to, take it up to the boosters, take whatever, and they can have their words with him. But this is a guy that wants to be out there. I think it was Chris Kamrani wrote his story in The Athletic talking about how hard it is for him to be able to not be on the field. It's hard on his family to see him not be on the field. I don't think Cam goes through that pain and anguish if he's not trying to get back on the field. The problem is the money masks a lot of that stuff, and so it's easy for people to kind of use that as a front to be able to say, hey, this guy is just milking the clock. He's just trying to get the money, get the paycheck, and then move on. And sure, he's probably taken a lot of money from people over the last 2 years from injuries. But at the same time, if you're willing to pay a guy who's been injury prone, that's on you. I mean, in the most direct way, if you're willing to pay players at the collegiate level, that's what it's going to be. So there's still a lot that needs to happen at the collegiate level of being able to pay athletes. Maybe there's a similar situation where in the NFL you have a collective bargaining agreement and your contract is based on how many playing time. Whatever that may be, you can have that conversation later. But as it is right now, if you're going to pay a guy, it doesn't matter if he's on the field or not. That's just the nature of it. And to use it as an excuse seems pretty petty.
So after the Baylor game, after Cam got hurt and the conversation leading up to Utah State, I didn't know who was going to start. I was pretty confident that was going to be Isaac. I was told they were giving him the reps with the ones. By the way, I'm told he's getting the reps with the ones this week, just so you know, at least to start the week, and we'll kind of see what plays out from here. But I said during that week, whether or not it's Isaac on Saturday, I think it's probably safe to say that if Utah is going to win the Big 12, Isaac is going to have to step up for them again at some point. I did not know it was going to be in Stillwater, but I still believe they're going to need Isaac to step up to meet more moments, because how can you be confident, even if Cam comes back against Arizona, that he's just going to stay healthy? We all want him to be healthy. I don't want him to be injured. But have you seen enough, Josh, from Isaac that you're confident that this team can win the Big 12, even with this 18-year-old true freshman under center?
I think it's getting there, right? I still think your best chances with Cam, you're going to do everything you can to get him on the field. I don't think anybody's really questioning that. But I think as each week goes on, if Isaac continues to make progress and he continues to do things, I don't know that this schedule is super difficult that they couldn't do it without him. Obviously, getting into that title game and then playing in that title game with Isaac would be a tough challenge. But I think he's the type of kid that, he steps up to it. He's not fazed by it. So I think there's the ability is there, let's say. The issue is you have to hit so almost perfectly, right? Like getting to a championship, winning a championship, all things kind of have to work in your favor. And that's even with like a healthy Cam Rising. You're doing that now with a true freshman, and it's not to say that can't happen or that he can't lead a team there. And I think the team rallies around him in a way that it could work. I just think the ability to be able to do that, the margin of error is just so much lower there that you want to be able to see Cam on the field. So, I think you heard that on College Game Day as well. Kirk Herbstreit talked about if Cam Rising plays, Utah easily maybe he didn't say easily, but they beat Oklahoma State. If Isaac plays, they don't. I think that's kind of where you're getting at with this, where Isaac, you may be able to get something, and I think people are starting to believe in him more, especially against an Arizona or an Arizona State, but it's going to be so much harder when you're playing teams that are going to be more different. The Iowa State, their defense is going to be a little bit tougher. That BYU game, that's going to be tougher, and obviously an emotional game with it being against his brother's old school. I think it's possible. I just don't know that it's going to be as sustainable for Isaac if they can't get Cam back. It's just too much to put on somebody. Can it happen? Sure. I just don't know that it's a likely opportunity.
So, Josh, as you know, because I asked you every time you were on the show leading up to the season, and this is also predicated on things that were discussed publicly from the coaching staff, is there wasn't a bell cow back. There were 4 or 5 that they like. Well, maybe there is. Have we seen enough to know that now Utah clearly has an RB1 and Makai is going to be somewhat of a bell cow moving forward?
Yes, with the caveat, right? I think they still want to keep him at a lower carry limit. He's obviously getting those number 1 reps. I don't think there's any question there. They're still putting Mike Mitchell in those third down scenarios where they need some short yardage, just use his muscle to get in there. But I think that's a perfect situation for them. Makai can get in there. If he can do his work on first and second down and maybe a third down occasionally, that really gives Utah what they need in this bell cow back, right? He's proven that he can do it. Oklahoma State, is probably one of the toughest defenses that they're going to face this year. There's others, but it's going to be on par with that. And if he can do it against a team like that, that kind of shows his vision and his ability. I mean, the fact that he's out there stiff-arming guys and he's breaking tackles and then doing his little stutter step to make guys miss, shows he's got the talent to do it. It's now just replicating it on a week-to-week basis. And so I think him getting that confidence, he's supremely confident in himself. I think that bodes well. And if they can continue to get that out of him, yeah, 100% he's that guy. But it's still never going to be the Zach Moss or the Jaquindon Jackson where he was going to get 30, 35 carries a game. That's going to be much more tempered to try to make sure that he gets, good touches, but it's not going to be so much that they wear him out by the time the end of the season comes, and then you're stuck with nobody out there. So it's definitely moving past that running back by committee, but I think it's still going to be one where they watch and are careful so that they're not overusing him, because they just the depth from Mackay to the next guys at this point is pretty drastic, and some of that is Mike Mitchell being injured, so he hasn't been able to see the field as much, but you've got to keep him healthy to keep that run game going.
No Karene Reed, but the defense did what the defense usually does when the head coach is who it is and the defensive coordinator is who it is. They did go, prevent to soften it up a little bit at the end to make sure they ran out the clock to get the win, and it got loose a little bit. But for 3.5 quarters, Josh, the defense was really solid. What stood out most to you?
Honestly, the secondary was what I was most impressed. Utah put a ton of pressure on them in the box and obviously stopped Ollie Gordon. All that was great, and I don't want to take away from that. But I think what I was most impressed by was how good those DBs were able to lock up these wide receivers that everybody comes in and talks about as being some of the best in the conference. You really didn't get a ton of yardage from them. And, each of them had about 50 yards, and most of that came in those last two drives. But these DBs did a phenomenal job of being able to lock them down. Alakai Gilman, he had one of the best coverage grades of the week. He did really well being able to protect up there, being able to see what needed to go. You have Smith Snowden that continues to improve. Elijah Davis, Scooby Davis, he's really come on for Kenan Johnson and become a viable starting caliber guy, him mixed with Cam Calhoun. This is a position group that, we were really worried about coming into this, especially when Kenan went down. And I've been really impressed with what they've been able to do. It's not perfect by any means. I think there's, some things that they still need to correct, and teams can absolutely find ways to scheme against that. But to do that against these wide receivers that Oklahoma State had shows the potential that they have, and I think that was probably the most impressive asset of the defense, despite a lot of things going on that allowed this defensive team to do really well.
All right, Arizona rolls into town, and they're coming off a bye. And last time we saw Arizona, they just were bullied around by K-State, who got smoked by BYU. Utah, 14-point favorite at home against Arizona. Based off of the data that we have so far, this feels like what should be an easy Utah win at home. Give me your thoughts on this game coming up Saturday night, late kick, 8:15 on ESPN.
Yeah, I think on paper this easily flips in Utah's favor, right? I mean, I think Arizona has a great quarterback and wide receiver, but outside of that tandem, they don't really have enough pieces to compete on the level that they were competing last year. And they have to face a Utah team that absolutely remembers that game last year. Arizona embarrassed them. They came in, they were scoring late, even when I think it was like 50 seconds left, they were still running plays that you would run in the second quarter. I mean, they were trying to score as many points as they possibly could on Utah. And it was a demoralizing a loss for Utah. And so you were going to see a Utah team that is pretty focused on this game, right? I mean, I know on paper it's really easy to say that Utah's going to roll in this game, but I think there's just a lot of, I wouldn't even call it hard feelings, but I think there's just a memory of what happened, that this team is going to do whatever they can to be able to kind of showcase who they are. And the fact that Arizona doesn't have the depth and the talent that they had last year, this could be a bloodbath. I mean, this could be a situation where Utah absolutely steamrolls them and makes them pay and do all that from last year. But once again, you've got a freshman quarterback that's likely going to start. That changes the dynamic, right? I think if Cam does this is easily like a 21-point victory. That's not to say Isaac can't do it, and I have, a lot of faith in Isaac to be able to do it, but it changes, right? So it's easy to sit here and say they're going to blow him out because Arizona doesn't have X, Y, and Z, but I think this is just a game where Utah is so much more the talented team, and Arizona just doesn't have the dogs to be able to fight.
All right, Josh, before I say you lose, BYU picked 13th in the preseason media poll. Vegas over-under was 4.5. They're at 4 wins. You can't argue with the fact that it was impressive. Now, it was a unbelievable combination of great fortune and opportunistic skill. Over the course of like 6.5 minutes, they scored 31 unanswered in the most bizarre of ways. However, 4-0, top 25 for the first time since 2022 as far as Utah and BYU being in there together. What are you willing to say about how good BYU is today based off of what you've seen so far?
First off, I think that defense is real, right? I think what Jay Hill has done is pretty remarkable. I think, they have a lot of talent, and you're seeing that. They're starting to buy into his system. It's much improved from where they were a year ago, where they were getting pushed around a lot. Offensively, I still don't know that we know who they are. I think those turnovers masks, some of the problems that they have where that momentum and just everything kind of collapsing in on Kansas State kind of masks a lot of that, and we still don't know fully what this BYU offense can be. But with that said, anytime you can get a win, especially a dominant win like that against a ranked team, you have to credit the team, right? So it's easy to sit here and nuance it all and say that, BYU did this, but it really was fortunate. Yeah, all of those things did happen, but I think, BYU really showed out in what they can do. My question really comes down to, is this similar to Utah in the early years of the Pac-12, where you can hang early with some of these teams and you're going to be really good and you're going to, flip some of these games that you probably shouldn't? What's that going to look like if the season develops? Are they going to be able to maintain that depth? Are they going to be able to stay healthy? As it goes on, it becomes a much more difficult challenge. You saw that with Utah a lot, where they could get through September and October relatively fine and they could compete. And then that November hit and suddenly they were a shell of themselves. That's where I want to see BYU kind of take it to the next level. So, yeah, I think this BYU team is good. I don't know if they're great yet, but I think they're a good team that
Josh's interviews oftentimes end up sounding like he just jumped into quicksand. I don't know why. There's something about my man's cell phone reception. No, it's all good. We'll let him go. So I appreciate Josh's time. It's weird. Josh, more than any other guest, has this thing where, like, you can tell when a guest is having cell phone issues, but Josh literally jumps into like a pothole or quicksand, and the interview ends. That's like a Josh Furlong signature, but we appreciate his time. On this Monday, let's welcome in Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. In a minute, coming up on the other side, if you missed Coach Witt's press conference, we are going to bring that back to you. We do that every Monday on the radio program if you missed it in the morning. So that comes your way coming up next. After 30 years, we have said goodbye to the Bees here in the capital city as they head south now to daybreak. So we're going to bring in Tony Parks today. And if you missed Spencer Hall, we'll bring that back. He was awesome. But before we catch a break, we welcome in Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Spence?
I'm good. I have good energy. I don't have brain fog. I'm sleeping well. My exercises and workouts feel like I'm a much younger person. That's because of what you've been able to do to help me with both testosterone therapy and vitality peptides. So let's hone in for this segment on those two products specifically and what they can do for men of a certain age.
Absolutely. It's two of my favorite things. Testosterone can really change everything in a man's life, from your libido to your energy to your muscle mass. It's really important because most men are super low and they need to get it evaluated. And then peptides are really cool because they're amino acids, and they just help to improve cellular function throughout your body by regulating your hormones, by promoting lean muscle mass, improving metabolic support. They're really great, and they can be customized based on your needs.
All right, let's bring in Ken now, patient care coordinator and one of Dr. Peterson's business partners. Ken, share your experience. Never mind,
Ken is actually on the phone doing a consult
Ken,
right
never
now.
mind.
You just get me. But Ken is my partner, and I've helped him personally with his sexual wellness needs as well as testosterone and using the peptides. And I got to say, he's a completely transformed person. He's in his mid-60s, and he feels like he's in his, early 40s. He has tons of energy. He plays pickleball every day. He's lifting weights. He's really doing great. And just from a physical standpoint, he looks absolutely different.
All right, Dr. Peterson, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who call you today?
So our offer, as we are rebranding and bringing Lifestyle Men's Health to Utah, it is 50% off. You do need to call ASAP and get an appointment booked to take care of that offer, but that is our special right now.
All right, the phone number. Give them a call today at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203. Or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Give her a call, 385-458-9203. Let's catch a break. We're going to get back to it coming up on the other side. Coach Witt, if you missed his presser, we'll bring it back to you. Then Tony Parks, Spencer Hall, a lot to do on a Monday. We'll say goodnight for Monday Night Football at 6 o'clock. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, we're going to catch up with Tony Parks today. Chatted with Tony last week. Wanted to give our friends at the Bees a little promo love for their final week playing baseball in the capital city. Spencer Hall, 5 o'clock hour. Talk more college football. Pretty much been a college football-centric show today. As you would expect after the weekend that was for the Utes and the Cougars on a national stage as well. So, there you go. What'd you do this weekend? Anything exciting?
Some football, some mountainous activities, but nothing that you wouldn't expect from myself.
Your boy won a golf tournament.
Oh, ho, ho.
Let me actually, in case people are listening, let me start over.
Let's add some context.
Your boy was part of a group that won a scramble. So as a result of my friends being very good at golf, I was part of a team that won a scramble. But I played in, I don't know, hundreds of scrambles. I've never won.
And you guys, the score was up front. Everything's cool.
We stand by the integrity of our score. As I've told you, this tournament that I played in before, I've won 3 or 4 times, but the cheaters who claimed their score was lower than mine took home the trophy. No cheaters this time.
Okay.
We had everyone above board, everybody reporting accurate scores. It was at Old Mill. It was for charity. Because, you know, that's the type of – when people ask you, Porter, like, hey, what's Spence like? You're like, he's all about philanthropic work, the community.
Just charity.
Yeah, you know that's how I roll.
Right.
So $7,500 to Girls on the Run. Shout out to Girls on the Run. And I was part of a group that won a tournament this weekend.
I love that. I'd love to hear it.
It was fun. I won $50 to Uber Eats. What should I get for dinner tonight?
Ooh. Uber Eats, $50.
Are you a meal delivery app guy?
No. I'm like the anti-meal delivery guy.
Is it because it costs $37 for a burrito?
I mean, it's part of the delivery fee, but I'm fine with the convenience thing. But I live downtown, so like I'm not going to pay an extra convenience fee when I could walk, quarter mile, half a mile?
That's the smart thing to do because I don't utilize the apps very often. But when I do, I'm always like, wait, I just paid $27 for a turkey sandwich. I can't. That's malfeasance. That's a horrible, irresponsible way to walk through life.
Can't do it. And yeah, I've taken like a principle stand against it more so than the other stuff.
Are you still stealing apps so you can watch football from your mom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So selective moral code.
I think my entire moral code is fairly selective, yes.
You and me both, pal. You and me both.
Self-awareness here.
Fair enough. All right. We will get to Tony and then Spencer Hall, but as we do every Monday, in case you missed it from earlier, here is the head ball coach for the University of Utah, Coach Witt.
All right, good start to the Big 12 conference play. In our game down or over in Stillwater, proud of our guys. A lot of positive takeaways from that game. Obviously, the freshman quarterback, Isaac Wilson, did what we needed him to do, took another step forward in his progression, and for him to go into, our team, but him playing quarterback into the number 14 ranked team in the country's stadium, hostile environment, and come away with a win, that was great to see happen, and so very proud of him. Proud of Mekhi Bernard for what he accomplished. Now, obviously, he doesn't accomplish that without some really good stuff going on up front with our offensive line. So that was a big positive. Defense was completely smothering for about 3.5 quarters till we had a few breakdowns in towards the end of the game. Handled the heat conditions, which it was pretty hot. But I mean, you got to be able to play in whatever environment you're in. But our guys did a good job not letting that bother them. Didn't flinch. Didn't phase them. So a lot of positive takeaways, and bottom line came out with the win, 1-0. Right where we wanted to be, obviously, in the after the first conference game. Credit Oklahoma State there at the end. They were scrapping all the way to the very end and created a little drama for us at the end, which didn't need to happen, but give them credit for continuing to battle. Thought we were the more physical team. I think the rushing statistics are indicative of that and paint that picture. And so that was our kind of game. Rush for well over 200 yards. Throw for a couple hundred, 450 plus total low, held them under 300. Didn't win the turnover margin. That's another week where we dodged a bullet. That will catch up to us if we can't get that rectified. We got to get the turnover margin in our favor, and it starts with taking better care of the football on offense and creating more takeaways on defense. That's how you do it. It's pretty simple. What else? Red zone production, not enough. We offensively, we left points out there again, and that's going to catch up with us as well if we don't get that corrected and become better in the red zone. Let's see, what else was positive in that game? Fourth down conversions. And that really, fourth down conversions are almost tantamount to a takeaway. And so that balanced things out. Being -2 in the turnover margin, but converting 4 out of 5 fourth downs, that compensates for that in a way. It's not exactly the complete compensation, but it sure gives you an opportunity to extend drives. And like I said, instead of them getting the ball back, you retain possession. So that was a big deal for us, being 80% in the conversion rate on fourth down. So Arizona coming into our place this weekend, night game. We all know that Rice-Eccles is a real tough environment for opponents, especially at night. They got us pretty good last year, so we hope to play much better this year than we did last year. No updates on any injuries. Nothing was season-ending coming out of this past game, and so really nothing to talk about there. I can say that Isaac and Cam was a right before kickoff decision. It was not, we're trying to be gamesmanship or any of that stuff. It was, let's see how Cam functions in pregame, and then we decide who gives us the best chance to win. And so that was the decision made literally, 20-25 minutes before pregame or before kickoff. So, okay, I know I got a guy over there who wants to ask some controversial question. So Justin, go ahead. Not this week? Oh, you giving me a break. Nice. Okay, what is it? Lob a softball at me.
He did say great win on Saturday.
He did?
Good win for the program.
Wow. Thank you. That's rare coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, he says, last year we struggled with the Arizona, Fafita, and McMullen quarterback receiver combo. How are you game planning for this year to make it different?
Well, we got to come up with something. There's no doubt about it. Fafita is a terrific quarterback. Had a great game against us last year. The McMillan kid is a terrific receiver, leading the conference in yards per game, in the top 2 or 3 or 4 in receptions per game. So he's a big target, big catch radius. It reminds me a lot of Devon Bailey. 6'5" and a couple 100 pounds, 210, and runs exceptionally well. Great body control. He's a big time receiver. So we got to have an answer, and hopefully, like I said, play better than we did last year.
Kyle, can you tell us what Cam wasn't able to show you before kickoff?
Not enough velocity on the ball, plain and simple. Just not able to spin it like he needs to, and we didn't want, just didn't have that zip on the ball. And we had structured things in practice during the week where there was a possibility that Isaac would be the starter, so we gave him the 1 reps a couple of the days. Gave Cam some time off later in the week to see if we can get those, get him feeling better, and then test him pregame. That was the plan. So we followed the plan. There was nothing that surprised us, and made the decision we made and went with it.
And then do you to anticipate a similar plan this week?
We'll see. Hopefully he's further ahead, and if so, then maybe that clears the picture up sooner. So can't give you an answer right now till, again, we see him throw.
Kind of staying on that a little bit, with how well Isaac is playing, does that give you a little bit more leeway with that, or do you try to rush Cam back? How does that kind of work in your mindset?
First of all, it's great to see Isaac's progression, but the bottom line is whichever quarterback gives us the best chance to win is the one that'll play. And obviously we're not going to put Cam out there if there's a health risk that the medical people haven't cleared. And so that but he was cleared for last week as far as just, you can use him, and just up to you guys what decision you make. So we're not going to, I think we're past that point where you have to worry about re-injury or anything like that. So hopefully, knock on wood.
Arizona's coming off a bye week, but a couple weeks ago, they got pretty thoroughly beaten. What do you see on the film that you might be able to replicate? What were their problems in that game?
Well, K-State ran the ball really effectively. It was 200-plus yards, and I think Arizona only had 40, 50, 60 yards of rushing, and that's damaging. I mean, when you can rush for a bunch and not give up much in the run game, that allows you to control the game a lot of the time, and that's exactly what K-State did. K-State did a really nice job defensively, mixing up coverages, bringing pressure, dropping 8, effective. They got good pressure with a 3-man rush at times, and so they had a good plan going in and slowed them down. But to me, the big key was their ability to control the football through the run game.
Dorian Singer's had a couple of good games. What have you liked about his play, and how valuable is it for Isaac to have that reliable option?
I've liked everything about Dorian's play, and very valuable. And I think what you saw Saturday was more indicative of what we should be able to utilize him, week in and week out. That was his most productive game of the season on Saturday. And he's a complete player. He'll block for you. He's made some big blocks for us this year in the run game. He's tough. His hands are incredible. I mean, you saw some of the catches he made, that comeback where he scooped the ball up literally inches from the turf, the one he pinned against his head. So he's a big time talent, and I'm sure he'll be extra motivated this week because he was on the Wildcats a couple years ago.
What specifically have you liked about Isaac's progression?
Everything. His confidence, his command of the offense. He's got, I've said before, he's got the it factor for a quarterback, and that's so critical. You got to have the guy that has that it factor, that leadership, and the players really sense it. They love playing for him. I mean, they got a ton of confidence in him, and he's fearless. He's an excellent runner. You saw him rip off that 40-plus yard run, which is huge at the time, and so we're real pleased with really every aspect.
Are you surprised how Mekhi Bernard is taking command of this running back room? That was your biggest concern coming into the year, and look where you are now.
Yeah, it's he's right there at or near the top of the league in rushing. He's been a workhorse for us, and that was probably a little more than we should utilize him. He had 25 carries. I said in the week prior, 15 to 20 is probably more a realistic figure for longevity's sake. But when we needed him, he was there and answered the bell every single time, made some huge runs. That 60-plus yard run was incredible. I mean, the tackles that he broke and that move he put on the one kid, and then the acceleration down the sideline. I mean, he's a big-time back.
Kyle, you sort of mentioned heading into last week's game that you wanted to improve tackling and just key in more on the run game. How do you feel like you guys did in that avenue against Oklahoma State and so forth? We
were just okay tackling. We weren't great. And we tried to be single-digit tackles, and we were 15 missed tackles. Single-digit missed tackles, and we were at 15. So above our quota. And so, we had like a couple plays where there was 4 on one play. And so it added up quick, but that being said, I thought we did a nice job versus their run game, and the Gordon kid is a big time back, and we were able to keep him in check for the most part, and that was a huge reason for the outcome is our run defense.
Kyle, you've always said that around the 4-week mark, somewhere around there, that you kind of know who your team is. Do you feel like you have an identity? Do you feel like who you are, and how do you assess it right now?
Yeah, I think 4 to 6 weeks. 4 is the earliest you can, and 6 weeks is probably by then you've got enough perspective based on other matchups and teams you've played, and they're playing other teams, and you just get a better feel for it. I think this team is incredibly passionate and has a ton of energy, excellent leadership. Love coaching them. I mean, it's a pleasure to coach these guys. We got guys that are so competitive and tough. The 2 D tackles come to mind, Junior and Keanu, who are such great leaders for us. Kareni when he's available, and hopefully we get him back soon. Of course, Cam, Isaac when Cam's not in there, and so it's a team that appears to love football and love what they're doing, and they love every aspect of it. They love to practice, love to get in the weight room. I mean, they're all in. So it's one of those teams that you really enjoy being around, and it has a lot of upside.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, when Cam is in under center, your offensive identity is pass heavy and so forth. How do you, I guess, measure your offensive identity now that he hasn't been able to play a couple of games? And when he is able to come back in, is there more things that you would like to be able to do since he has only played 2 games?
Well, Isaac pretty much has the playbook available to him now, so there's not really as much difference as you'd think in the play calling or the game plan based on who's a quarterback. Now there was 3 weeks ago, but this week it was very similar. Not exact, but very, very close to what Cam would have had at his disposal. And so, going forward, it's almost to the point now. In fact, I would say it is to the point where, regardless of who the quarterback is, it'll pretty much be the same plan, and just whichever one's going to give us the best chance to win, that's the guy who runs it.
It looked like the offensive line got some of the best push of the season so far, at least in the run game. Where are they strongest right now, and maybe still working on some stuff?
Good question. I think there was outstanding push, particularly early in the game. Now we did wear out a little bit at the end, and we were more leaning on people than knocking people off the ball. But it was like 140 degrees on the turf, and it takes its toll. I mean, both teams are out there and so forth. But those big offensive linemen, they seem to maybe dehydrate the quickest. But I thought they controlled the line of scrimmage. We controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, but I would say that our run blocking took the biggest step forward in that last game. Pass protection was still decent. We gave up 2 sacks and a couple hurries, but I just think overall through 4 games, I believe they've taken a step forward each week.
What are the biggest challenges going against Noah Fifita? Not a real dual threat guy, but very efficient and accurate.
Yeah, he can run the ball if he wants to, doesn't really want to, would rather beat you with his arm, would rather stay in the pocket, or when he does escape, would rather throw than tuck it and run. But you just got to try to keep McMillan from going crazy. I mean, if he gets double-digit catches and 200 yards, that's going to be a long night for us. And so we got to try to keep him to reasonable numbers. He's going to get his, but if it's reasonable, and if Fifita the same. And again, defense for us starts at the line of scrimmage versus the run. If we can be stout against the run, that really helps our cause.
Elijah Scooby Davis played maybe his best game. How encouraged have you been by his progression?
Very encouraged by both him and Cam Calhoun. I think those guys are doing a great job. They split time essentially at the corner spot opposite Zamaya. And that interception he made was impressive. The first one he had in the season was kind of, a gimme right to him. But this one was, not a lot of guys could make that play, adjust to the ball over your outside shoulder and catch the back half of the football. And he has a lot of receiver experience in high school, so I think you saw that right there. But really proud of him, and Cam, like I said, and Smith Snowden, he's playing exceptionally well too in the slot. And that's the most difficult assignment is slot corner. You got the most challenging, not only physically but mentally. There's more to it, and then Zamaya's doing a good job. So I think we're pleased right now with the entire secondary. Did miss some tackles from the safety position, but everybody contributed a little bit to the missed tackles. But so far through 4 games, I think we're holding the fort down.
Going back to the offensive line, still seeing a lot of stack boxes, a lot of defenses that just have 8, 9-man guys in the box. What's been the biggest difference this year compared to last year in terms of your improvements in the run game?
Good question. We are seeing loaded boxes, and particularly when we got the lead at OK State the other day, and that led to the Brent Keithy touchdown because they were so packed in, and so. But I just think that our offensive line is playing efficiently and getting better each week. Those 2 young tackles are starting to come of age, and Spencer was further ahead than Caleb, obviously with his experience last year. Michael Mokofisi's a road grader inside, and Tanoa Tungiai is playing his best football at the left guard spot. And Jared Kump started out with some pancakes right out of the gate and was doing a good job. So I'd just say the overall physicality, but proud of him. We need to continue to get better, and as the season goes. How come you're in that nice, comfortable chair and everyone else sits in?
It was the only comfortable chair,
Okay.
And the outlet.
Okay. Well, there's ladies in the room. Did you want that chair? No. Okay. All right. You're good. You're good. You're good. All right. Final question. All right.
What went wrong on the interceptions?
Let's see. Let me think. The throw was a little off on the one. gosh, I'm trying to picture him exactly in my mind. Remind me exactly the.
First one, the DB jumped the route, or the safety jumped the
Yeah,
route.
that's right.
Stanley,
Yeah, Dijon, I don't think he saw the safety coming. Yeah, the Dijon wheel route, he thought he had him, and I thought he had him, and then the safety comes out of nowhere and overlaps over the top and made an outstanding play. That was really, well, the throw, ideally in that situation, you'd want to throw away from the safety and fade him to the outside, but again, I don't think he saw him or anticipated a center field safety being able to cover that much ground. And then the other one was on the boundary.
Into the half.
Yeah, into the half, and there was 3 turnovers within 40 seconds, I believe it was, or a minute. It was really crazy, but just didn't put the ball where it needed to be. I mean, I don't know what to say more than that.
Congratulations, bro.
What?
You got what everyone who goes up there for the press conferences are just so thirsty for.
I've realized that
from Coach Witt. You got the good question from Coach Witt. That's going to brighten your week all week.
And I've realized that if I ask about the O-line, I get more of those.
Which is really the way to do it. So just real quick, have you rubbed it in Bartle's face or Furlong's face? Like, I know the deal, man. You go up there, everybody's just hoping for the Coach Witt pat on the head. Thanks for coming. Good question. Have you talked to your media cohorts?
Oh no, I got to build up more. Okay. I got to get like all of them throughout the year. See who gets the leaderboard.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Good work, Porter Larson asking Coach Witt a question about O-block and getting the good question from Kyle. That's a good Monday. All right, let's welcome in Dr. Angela Peterson from Lifestyle Men's Health. Dr. Peterson, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Spence. How are you?
I'm well. So erectile dysfunction, the treatments that have been offered in this market, unfortunately, have not been all that effective, and there are a lot of consumers that have been burned a little bit. Your treatment is different, okay? So let's hear about why your treatment is different and the results that you see at Lifestyle Men's Health.
Well, absolutely. Our treatment is significantly different, and we are using regenerative therapy by injecting stem cells to improve erectile function. It works. It's been proven. The other stuff that's been tried is just not that effective, and we definitely feel bad about that. And that's why we are in business, and we are really hoping to, bring intimacy back into our clients' lives and really change the relationships for the better.
How can you help our listeners with weight loss, our listeners who need to lose a little weight?
Oh, my favorite subject. Weight loss is super important for overall health. It's no secret that Americans are overweight. And, if you've got a protruding belly, guys, you got to get it taken care of, because that's probably the number one reason why you have erectile dysfunction. Your blood glucose levels are too high. You could be type 2 diabetic, and all those things really affect your erectile function. So our mission and goal at our clinic is, to look at the whole health picture. It's not just one thing that's going to make your erectile function better. You definitely have to have health balance, and we are really good at evaluating that.
All right, let's talk about the 2 things you've helped me out with. It's testosterone therapy and vitality peptides. I'm a man in my mid-40s. Over the past year, it's made a massive difference in a lot of ways. Tell our listeners how you think that it could help them.
Well, testosterone is low. And if you're out there driving around and you haven't had your testosterone checked, that's the first thing you need to do, because that will help a lot of things in your life. It's going to give you better energy. It's going to increase your libido. You're going to be able to build muscle faster, and you're going to get rid of brain fog, which is a huge problem. So definitely get your testosterone checked. And then peptides just really increase your overall wellness. They're amino acids, and they help to improve cellular communication all over your body.
All right, Dr. Peterson, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
Our special offer is 50% off our signature ED treatment. This deal is not going to last forever, so please give us a call and get scheduled and come on in, and we'll get your needs taken care of.
All right, guys, today's the day. Let's call Lifestyle Men's Health right now at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Dr. Peterson, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Tony Parks joins us coming up next, live in studio right here on ESPN 700. All right, Spencer Hall is going to roll by. One of my favorites to talk college football. Massive college football weekend behind us. We'll look at what's coming up this weekend in the landscape of college football, so stay tuned for that. If you missed Josh Furlong from KSL, check that out on the podcast page. Then we replayed Coach Witt. So mostly college football. We'll do more college football here in the 4 o'clock hour. But over the weekend, we said goodbye to the Bees here in the capital city after, 30 years of Smith's Ballpark. 100 years of history. And Tony Parks joins us live in studio as he did a week ago. Tony, happy Monday, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Doing great.
Good to see you, buddy.
Feels weird.
So is it?
Like,
It's 30,
not getting ready for a series.
It's
I'm not.
30 years, right? With
30
Smith's
years,
Ballpark
Smith's
and
Ballpark.
like 100 years of.
Yeah.
You know. How long
97.
has it been? Okay,
97, man.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, that location. Man, the fans were there over 13,000 yesterday. And you could feel it was like the perfect day. I mean, that's the way it should end, right? With this beautiful day outside.
Yeah.
You could feel an energy that was there. As people, it kind of had that holiday feel. It was strange. It was like a mixture of kids' day, holiday, special occasion. It just had it.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. And it was great to be a part of that. And I was honored to obviously call the final game there. Steve Klauke, I've always told the story, is November 11th. I still remember the date. We saw each other in a press box at Weber State. I had the TV call. He had the radio call. It was the first time we had a chance to see each other since I had been named play-by-play announcer. I was back home in Chicago with the newborn. And so anyway, I was there, and I remember him in that moment saying, I called the first game there, and you'll get to call the last game there. I'd never thought of it. And then obviously it means even more now with Steve being gone.
So. What was the feel like when the lights went out, when the game was over and the fans were gone and the final couple of people walked out of that facility for the last time? What did that feel like?
It kind of had this, like I was there this morning, and it just was this really strange feel. Yeah. Like just you're staring around that dead silence, and you're thinking to yourself like, no, we got a series here coming up. Or like it just still doesn't feel real quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm wrapping my mind around it. I take my dog out to the outfield there. We play football. She loves football. But anyway, we're out there playing around, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, this still doesn't quite feel real yet. I kept Klauke's office all together because he was going to actually clean out a bunch of different stuff, and then he had passed. I just kind of kept it there, just kind of keep the nostalgia, but emptying everything out, throwing away the 2004 Mariners media guide, stuff like that.
Yeah.
He kept a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, I wonder because what I wanted to do today. I was thinking about this. I wasn't able to get down this weekend. I went a couple of months ago with some friends just because I wanted to get there one more time before the ballpark closed down. But I wasn't able to get there this weekend. But I was just thinking about just memories. Of going down there, and I want to do a little bit of that with you today for our baseball fans in the market that are bummed out. It was interesting watching a lot of the local news broadcasts went down there. A lot of them interviewed fans on the concourse. Didn't feel like there was a consensus of I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm supportive. It felt like there was a little bit of everything. I wonder from your vantage point, was there a redeeming feel from people like not people with the organization, like fans that you talk to?
Yeah.
Is it heavy heart? Is it anger? Is it sadness? And then let's do a little story time.
Well, I think I think it's all of it. There's sadness to it because this is a place they've always come to, this exact location, all of that. It's the only one I knew of, right? The other part of it becomes like at some point, yes, we're going to move on to a different ballpark that's going to have new stuff. It's going to be in a great neighborhood. It's going to be a different experience, and different is not always bad. And I think that is something that many people started to think about. Like, man, it's just sad. For me, it was like what a beautiful honor. What a beautiful tribute. Chance to be here all these years. And now a brand new ballpark. It's very rare you get a brand new ballpark, which is publicly funded now and you get to kind of start over the way that you want and have it be unique to itself. So, yeah, it's every place that's ever been out there. Historically, you have very rare times where a ballpark just will continue to go on through the test of time. Fenway Park, Wrigley Field, whatever. It eventually starts over new. Dirksville, when that was being torn down, I remember there was a lot of negative reaction to that. I understand it's changing location. But at some point, if you want to get to the premier experience and be the best experience in minor league baseball, that might be necessary. And in this particular case, they found it necessary.
Well, and this is a bit of a non sequitur, so not to go off on a tangent, but we are somewhat unique here where change doesn't happen very much.
Mm-hmm.
And when it does, folks don't love it, okay? But ultimately, this happens everywhere, and it's happened with the biggest and most famous teams in pro sports. Not many people probably know that the current Madison Square Garden is not the original Madison Square Garden. Like, I'm not just talking about small ballparks or small clubs. I'm talking about the biggest teams. Look up, Google Art Modell today, kids. Move out of town, move locations, build new stadiums, build new arenas. It happens all the time, but it doesn't happen much here. And that's why I was kind of curious to see the way people would react to it. I mean, ultimately, there is an angle here and an element here where I believe that our pro sports team should play in the capital city. I believe with the public investment into the airport and the public investment into infrastructure and land, I think the best thing for everybody is if these teams play in the capital city. However, it's undeniable, Tony, how our market has grown down south, where every time I go visit my brother who's in Draper, sometimes I have to go past the point of the mountain. I don't want to, but sometimes I do. I'm blown away at how much bigger it is and how much it's grown since I was a student at the U, I guess I'll say, 25, 26 years ago. Like, I can see how, even though I'm someone who lives in Salt Lake and we all react to the news the way that it affects us, there's probably a lot of excitement out in Daybreak where a lot of people out there have probably been like, well, I would love to go to more Bees games, but I can't because I can't make that drive. There is an angle here where there is a community who will be rewarded, even though for those of us that live here, we kind of feel like we're shortchanged.
Well, yeah, Las Vegas had their team moved to Summerlin, right outside. Why? Because that's where the affiliate's going to be, and then the major league team's going to be in the city, and I know that they have a disaster with the A's. I'm aware of that. That's a separate conversation. So when people say, gosh, baseball belongs in Salt Lake City, yeah, I agree. And now we're hoping Major League Baseball will be there in Salt Lake City. And so the minor league team, if that were to happen, by the way, the minor league team would be there in Daybreak. And that happens for a lot of teams. The Gwinnett Braves, it happened for years with the Colorado Springs Sky Sox. Like, we can go on and on and on with the number of teams that have been set up that way. And this is Sugarland with Houston. So that we can go on and on, but the key there is it's like setting up nicely to do that if expansion happens at Salt Lake, it would be very attractive. They put themselves in a very good position for all of that to come together. So you have to remember that the way things are trying to be built, the ultimate situation is Major League Baseball in the capital city, minor league baseball in one of the suburbs. That is how they're setting it up in Las Vegas. And by the way, I was there in Summerlin. That whole community loves that team. You can tell and feel that, okay, this is not as big a city, but it is still a city that's excited about having their team, that it is theirs, where you get some of the parts of Vegas you love, but it's not like Vegas. It's not this. You can feel it's not the same thing. So, yes, Daybreak is not Salt Lake. It's not. But you can still sense that they're going to love that team. They're so excited about it. And the eventuality of Major League Baseball being there would be great. We'd have 3 major pro sports teams in the capital city, all right by the airport. All of that would be magnificent.
You're not going to believe this, I have never been to Daybreak one single time in my whole life.
It's awesome.
I know nothing about it. So educate me a little bit. Tell me about this community and whether or not you have a pulse on their excitement level to have the baseball team out in their backyard.
I stayed. So when I was back and forth during the season last year, I rented out our house, and then I would be in Chicago during the off stands, and then 6 days in that area, actually, when the Bees were home. So I was flying back and forth during the season. That's where I stayed. A buddy of mine let me stay in his basement. It was easy. I actually packed to be here. So I had like a duffel bag full of Bee stuff. Was at a golf tournament and realized, I don't have clubs. I only have Bee stuff. Had to figure out what to do. Anyway, So that's where I stayed. And I went to restaurants out there. I went to community events out there. I made a number of friends out there. That's all they talk about. Yeah, no. They're so excited. So here's what they love. They love events. Mm-hmm. They love their community. They love their very safe neighborhoods. They have big families, a number of them out there. And the other thing that they do is they put together, like year-round, a lot of different stuff that connects with those different parts. And so they're excited to have a team that is theirs. So, yes, it's going to be different. Different is not always bad. You can still go to these games. I get it. It's not as convenient as it was before. 1300 South and West Temple will always be near and dear to my heart. I'm not going to say it won't. But that does not mean that what we're moving towards is going to somehow be negative, bad. It doesn't mean it's toxic, selfish. It doesn't mean it's any of that. It means there are certain moves that are going to be necessary, even if deep down in our hearts there's a preference on where we always knew where it happened to be as we grew up, and maybe your memories will always be better there.
How many Zupas are in Daybreak? Just kidding. Yeah,
That's actually the place I went to most with this group that was there.
You reference restaurants.
They were like, we're a lot of chains.
Yeah,
chains.
Little Chili's maybe.
Texas Roadhouse.
Applebee's.
Lovely. No,
Right.
it's great.
$5.99, 250 calories.
But it was great.
But you feel like the ball club will be supported.
They will be.
Okay.
They will be.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there's people who've asked me like, hey, would you guys set up something for golf carts to park? Because like some people are close enough where they don't want to drive their whole car and park and do all that. Okay. And then a lot of people want to ride their bikes to the game.
Yeah.
So I've had people ask me, hey, do you know if they would have a situation for people taking their bikes to the game that would be good and a setup there?
Yeah.
The other part about it, too, is people were bombarding me with, hey, which area is going to be the sun spot? Which area would be the best to sit for here, and shade, and this and that and the other? All of that is going to be mixed in to what this new ballpark is going to be. Expected to have a nice view, which was one thing I definitely loved.
Got to have the view.
Yeah. And so, yes, I'm not going to say people who are emotionally attached to 1300 South and West Temple have no reason to feel that way. It doesn't mean the emotions have to be negative towards what this market is moving towards in the game of baseball.
All right, let me get a fun memory from you. I know you probably have a million, but real quick, I've told you the story before. This would have been 2011, I believe, because that's Mike Trout's rookie year. And the Bees had my old show at the old station, Gordon and I, they had us out for opening day to do our afternoon drive show prior to their first game that afternoon. And I had very little frame of reference for the roster. I wanted to be as educated as I could possibly be. So I went and talked to Klauke prior to our broadcast. And the PR group over there had said they would hook me up with one player interview. If I want to interview a player, let's get it done early because then, they've got batting practice, get ready for the game, whatever. So I asked Steve, I said, give me one player to interview prior to the game tonight. And Steve looked at me and he points at Mike. He said, you better grab him.
Yes.
Because he's gone in a week and he's never coming back. And he was spot on. I think Mike played like 3 or 4 more games.
It wasn't much.
And then, he goes. So that's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had based off of what Mike turned into. One of the greatest players of his generation, sitting down with Mike Trout at that ballpark to interview him was really cool. But give me a couple of good Tony Parks memories.
Got a couple of good ones. One, my wife and I always hosted the special needs tailgate with the K crew. That will always be near and dear to my heart. It was a private event that was wide open and big, and they played a game in the parking lot, and it was always a beautiful Sunday afternoon, morning, if you will, and it was always magical. Absolutely magical. That parking lot was perfect for it. The shade, the whole thing. Like, there's certain times where you have, like, little things where you're like, this was literally built for this. And so it was always a personal thing for us. I still think maybe my favorite memory ever, 2009, I go to a movie at like 9:15 in the morning because it was Pioneer Day and I was going to have a really busy day. Wanted to get home, take a midday kind of nap, and then get ready for what is an intense night. Fun, though. I get out of the movie. I had a flip phone for maybe another month. I open my flip phone and I have 27 missed calls. 27 missed calls, and I'm figuring out what in the world is going on. And these missed calls are all coming from the ballpark. The Portland Beavers had the swine flu. They had to bus from Reno, which would mean they would not make it in time for the first game of the series. We don't have enough time to tell everybody there's not going to be a game. I race to the ballpark, and every one of us are going crazy trying to figure out exactly how to plan this. Mark Amicone, Brad Salmon, myself, a couple others really got deep into here's how we put together the very best situation. There were 2 teams that were traveling in the area called the Bucks and the Marshalls. They were kids that were transitioning from high school into college or pros. And so throughout the course of that, those 2 teams just happened to be in town. And one of those teams just happened to have a kid on the front cover of Sports Illustrated named Bryce Harper and another kid named Chris Bryant, but nobody knew who that was. Yeah. There were a few other guys in there too. And they said, let's just have them come in and put on an exhibition game. And I'm going, well, let's also do something else that's unique and cool to this. Since we know this Harper kid can bomb the ball, we know they have other kids out there. Let's let them use big barrel metal bats. Let's have a home run derby. Let's put this whole thing together. What we also did in the middle of that is because we have to be time sensitive to the whole situation. I said, I've always thought it's ridiculous that the home run derby goes by outs. Do it by time. It'll make it better. Now they actually do that. No, it wasn't my idea. I didn't tell Major League Baseball to do that. They come out. The fans have no idea. They pack in. We let them know what's going on. We let the Bees players take part in the home run derby. They can use a metal bat. They put on a show.
I bet they did.
It was an amazing show. The fans were so happy. It was unique. It was fun. It was a 5-inning game between the two teams, and it turned out to be the greatest example of teamwork I've ever seen, where everybody has to think immediately. They don't have time to explain it. They just trust, react, and go. That's why that culture was so amazing, and it doesn't happen without that. The other one, Elliot Soto this year hit a grand slam on Mother's Day after he lost his mom, flipped the score. They won the game. He talked about how the mountains were such a special thing for him in that. So plenty of great memories. Those are a few of them.
Every once in a while, I'll hear a broadcaster say a sentence and realize how silly it is what we do. The sentence, the Portland Beavers got swine flu.
Yeah.
That's a great sentence.
That was the only example of that flu that ever led to something that was like altering. Remember, there was some paranoia about it, but it didn't shut anything down. It was nothing like, obviously, what we had with coronavirus.
Oh, for sure. The fear factor, the hombres and the caravans and such. But let's catch a break. Before we catch a break, let's welcome in Steve from Farmer and Chemist on a Monday afternoon. Steve, happy Monday, man. How we doing?
Happy Monday, Spence. I'm doing fabulous.
Well, I appreciate your time today. So Farmer and Chemist, you guys can help folks out with a lot of different things. Let's start with what you've helped me with, and that is my ability to fall asleep utilizing some CBD products, namely the gummies that you were able to hook me up with a couple of weeks ago. They've made a huge difference. I talk about it all the time. Let's get people off sleep meds, and something a little bit safer like CBD could be a great alternative. Let's talk about, Steve, how you can help people fall asleep.
You're talking about our yummy gummies, and those are great. I love taking them at night. Helps me get a deeper sleep. It has CBD, CBN, and the most famous cannabinoid, THC. So it has a small amount of THC in it, about 4 milligrams per gummy, and it just helps you get a better night's sleep. Now, we've had people come in and they sleep fine, but they get woken up by their spouse because they're a heavy snorer. So people take them just to get a little bit deeper sleep so they can deal with the snorers in their family. So
you could also help people, Steve, that have chronic muscle soreness, arthritis, things like that. And I utilize a balm you gave me for this little tennis elbow situation that I've developed because I play too much mediocre golf. How can you help our listeners that, like me, are aging athletes and find themselves in too much pain day to day?
I suggest you come out and get a jar of our Problem Solved, put it in your golf bag or your pickleball bag, and when you're starting to, after about the third or fourth hole, get some muscle pain, rub it on, and after about 20 minutes, you'll start to feel relief. CBD and CBG are great for inflammation. So it takes away. I know people that they've twisted ankles or have a groin injury. They put it on. It takes the inflammation away, which helps relieve the pain. So we suggest you have a jar in your golf bag so you can finish the round and not have too much pain. So.
All right, Steve, before I set you loose, for our listeners out there that might think, I'm talking to this dreadlocked hippie who's a drug dealer, and they don't really know what the difference is between, certain strains and certain CBD compared to THC, what have you. It's important to educate people on what exactly you do at Farmer and Chemist. How can people get more information and get their questions answered?
Come into our store at 7719 South Main in Midvale. Nice, open. Bring your aging parents by if they're having problems with the muscle pain. Very comfortable situation to sit down and talk about how CBD, and know that you're getting a product that has been certified by the state. You can check out the lab that you're not getting any pesticides or heavy metals. So you can trust our products. Our pharmacists have formulated these to be effective. And to be effective, you've got to have the right amount of cannabinoids. So come in and we can answer your questions to see if products with THC or without THC are the best products for you to help you fight pain or get a better night's sleep.
It's a really cool spot, historic Main Street in Midvale, or online at farmerandchemist.com. My good friends at Farmer and Chemist. Steve, happy Monday, man. Thanks for the time, okay?
Happy Monday, and use ESPN 700 to get 20% off.
There you go.
Thanks, Spence.
There you go. ESPN 700 to get 20% off. Go to farmerandchemist.com. I'd recommend the gummies for sleep. It's pretty awesome. All right, before we catch a break, we welcome in Ryan from the Dish Bros. Give him a call at 801-424-DISH. Hope you've had all your football at your disposal. I have through 4 weeks. Ryan, how can you help our listeners?
Hey, this is the time to call and get the best deal. And, guys, we're day in and day out saving people money, upgrading, bigger DVR. And, guys, the coolest thing that ever came about with TV as of late, it was the DVR. There's nothing nicer than having the capability of doing your own instant replays, rewinding, and auto-hopping commercials. And Dish has mastered that. Call us up and take advantage of the promotions. 2 years worth of credits, prices guaranteed. We'll throw in the multi-sports pack free for a year, which this includes the NFL Red Zone, plus a dinner at JCW's on top of everything. If you're a cable customer or DirecTV customer, listen, this is the reality. $60 to $100+ a month. Sometimes we even see as high as $200 a month savings by calling us. So you got that big cable bundle? We've got a solution. You can take a look at the other internet options that are out there, or even keep your existing internet. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of very good products that are much less expensive that work fantastically. So call us today, 424-DISH. Let us get you set up and installed, 801-424-3474.
All right, one more segment with Tony Parks coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Say that again. What do we got here? Let's get Tony's microphone on. What do we have here, Tone?
Foolhardy Memory.
All right.
George Strait.
Okay. Little George Strait.
Greatest of all time.
Porter, how pumped are you that you get permission to play George Strait on my show for the first time ever?
I like it. I always take advantage of those few and far between opportunities.
Right.
George, Willie, some of the older guys.
All right, we haven't done this in a while. We have the corniest breaking news sounder in all of radio, and when we first got it, I was mad that it wasn't better. And then after a while, I'm like, let's just lean into how bad it is. Time now for some HBO newsroom style breaking news. It doesn't even say breaking news. It's just like an exciting newsroom sounder.
This is breaking news.
Nice, Tony.
There you go.
That's all we need is Tony to VO a little breaking news. According to John Canzano, my guy.
Your guy?
Our guy.
Big John Canzano guy. The Pac-12 has offered membership to Utah State, according to a source that Canzano has reached out to. So Tony Parks live in studio. Let's do a little college football tone with this segment. Obviously, it was a big weekend last weekend, but what do you make of that? I talked about this after the news came down that the Pac-12 was back, question mark. Like, well, what does this mean for our friends up in Logan?
Yeah.
How crazy is it to think about the Utah State could be a Pac-12 school just a year after the University of Utah left the Pac?
Sure. I mean, the big question then becomes how good is the very best deal that they're going to have? Right? Because the flagship members of that conference are gone. And I'm not trying to downplay this. This could be great. If it's an uptick in what they get financially and exposure and they have a better TV deal and all that, then high five. You go for it, and that's really awesome. So, I mean, it's clearly not going to be considered among the Power Four. They're not going to be like, that's it. It's now a Power Five. However, this could be great for enhancing a lot of what Utah State's trying to do.
Let's unpack this a little bit more in case you missed the news cycle from earlier. The Mountain West Conference reached out to his 8 remaining members to try to say, hey, guys, we're good, right? We're cool, yeah? Well, Utah State now has leverage because the Mountain West Conference reached out to Utah State and, by the way, UNLV, who's really good this year in football, to see if they could kind of, keep this thing together, even though it seemed to be falling apart brick by brick. A few schools out of the AAC said no to the Pac-12 earlier, as did Vegas, by the way, just so you know. Vegas said no to the Pac-12. And so clearly the powers that be at the Pac-12 right now, they're like, okay, we can't get Vegas. We can't get some of the AA schools we want. We can't get UNLV, can't get Memphis. So they're just checking off the boxes. Air Force apparently has committed to stay in the Mountain West Conference as well. And so I guess Utah State, Tony, is like the next box to check after they've tried to check 5 or 6 because they still have to get 8 schools to be a actual conference.
So they would have to have that, and you're curious to see what else their secondary plan is with others that they're going to bring in to try and enhance that deal from what it is there. Because it's one thing to call yourself the Pac-12. That's nice. But then how attractive are you with your market sizes and everything that you're going to do to try and enrich a new TV deal? That's ultimately what this comes down to. And with what they have right now, I'm not so sure. Like, it's breaking news. It's nice. But now we have to get into how this really does what they expect it to do. So I'm sure that with somebody like Utah State, they're not coming in going, hey, we'll have even money. Obviously, there's going to be an uptick in what they're looking for, which is great.
So Memphis, Tulane, South Florida, and UTSA committed to the AAC after receiving Pac-12 interest. And as I referenced, the other reports are UNLV, in addition to Air Force, have decided to stay in the Mountain West Conference, which does lead us to Utah State, and we'll see what's next. But moving off of that, and by the way, the Mountain West Conference is about to get a check for about $120 million from the teams that are actually leaving to join the Pac-12, the Fresno States, the Boise States,
right.
all the states, San Diego States, they're going to have to write the Mountain West Conference checks for exit fees that will total about $120 million when you combine it with what the Pac-12 will owe the Mountain West Conference. So the Mountain West Conference has money to play with here for sure to try to cobble together something to save their situation. But, man, this Ever-changing landscape.
It's
of
never
college
going to
football,
stop.
man. It's
man.
crazy.
It's never going to stop. Do you think the big picture, I know it's a much longer conversation for a different day, do you think the big picture is eventually going to be 2 major conferences?
Oh, yeah.
Like 2 major leagues? That's what I think so, too.
For sure.
I think so, too.
For sure. And everyone who's not in those 2 is going to be in a precarious spot. There will always be an appetite for college football.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to look the way that we're used to it looking. But let's move over, Tony. Let's start here to where I started the show. So you're a man about town. You talk to a lot of people that are sports fans, obviously, not just Bees fans, football fans too. And I know that there is this feel in our market of real frustration about the lack of information regarding Cameron Rising's health.
Right.
It's here we go again, last year all over again. I talked to a lot of people this weekend in person. I don't live on the internet, but I get direct messages. I get emails like, dude, what's the deal? I'm the guy that told everybody a year ago he wasn't playing after I got the intel after 3 or 4 weeks, and I got a ton of crap for it, but I was right. And until Coach Witt gets an email from the Big 12 to say, hey, new policy, we are mandating you report injuries on Thursday or Friday before the start of the weekend. Until he gets that email, Tony, he's simply not going to do it.
Right.
His job is not to tell me or you who's playing quarterback for him. His job is to win football games. Now, let me be clear. I understand the frustration because here's where it gets different, Tony, as you know. The reports are Cameron Rising is receiving a 7-figure salary to play quarterback at Utah. When the money's involved, things get different. If a lot of that money comes from boosters, alumni, season ticket holders, guess what? Booster, alumni, season ticket holders, they want him on the field. Now, my personal opinion is that he is just hurt right now, and he'll play when he's healthy. But where do you fall in the lack of information? Do people have a right to be frustrated? And what do you make of the way that this kind of has played out?
So, first of all, I wish that they could do it along the lines the way the NFL does, where you have to report, you have to be accurate, where you have a system in place where that happens. Now, I know there's just a lot to do with fantasy football and all that, but there's gambling. So there's a ton of gambling on college football. Now, with the players having NIL and everything involved with it, when you have that much money involved, I would like to see them actually have something like the NFL. Until they do that, Kyle Whittingham has been successful in his career because he knows how to communicate what he wants, when he wants, with the best way to deliver it, strategically. Everything Kyle does is measured. Every single thing. And there's a reason why he does it the way he does it. I want them to get ready for 2 quarterbacks. If that can help with decision fatigue and some of the consuming of time in their preparation, then I need to do that. And if that makes the difference between a play action fake with the play being a little more open than it would be, then that's all we care about because that helped get this key first down, which led to a field goal. By the way, that was a 3-point game. Every inch matters. Kyle knows this. Every blade of grass matters. And so in every way that he communicates, he hasn't been this successful by accident. So, yes. So if a booster, sponsor, anybody is upset, the one thing you can then tell them is, okay, but winning is ultimately what this is about. So I know the individuals we got it. So I always told, I was actually asked by a company once, hey, what would you think if an NIL deal and this and that? And I said, I would actually stagger it based on certain performances and metrics, and then that now becomes the deal. They were like, oh. I was like, right. I said, where NIL is going to get weird is companies are going to get good at saying, if he scores a touchdown, it's this. If he does this, it's that. And then a coach says, yeah, we're going to move him to defense. And then it gets crazy, right? So NIL is going to get weird there. But if he's paid what he's paid and these things weren't in place, well, no, that changes the way you should negotiate in the future. Kyle's number one thing, you got to win football games. And if that inch becomes a mile and makes the difference between winning and losing, you got to do it. I don't hate to go back to the old church ball days. You know how big a deal they were.
Oh, yes.
I played with a guy. Love this guy. He was great.
What's his name? Vinny G? Vinny C?
No, it wasn't Vinny C.
How's my guy Vinny C, though?
He's out and about, man.
Porter, you have to understand, one of the first
international star.
One of the first real conversations I had with Tony after we kind of got to know each other a little bit is I'm sitting there. It's at a media table at a Jazz game. We're all eating dinner. And Tony is going on and on about how he doesn't allow his ward ball team to play zone. I'm like, this guy can't be serious. And then after a minute, I'm like, my man is dead serious. So, yes, I remember you did not allow zone in the Murray third ward or whatever it was.
It drove me nuts because we wouldn't defensive rebound. Anyway. So the big thing was, the fun thing was I remember we would have certain situations where we would switch. Anyway, we had one thing where it was, hey, half-court set, we'll go zone. And then if on a miss, we'll go man-to-man. And I love this guy, but we would literally get out of the huddle. He'd be like, hey, guys, reminder, we're going zone on makes, and then we're man-to-man on misses.
What's
and
my man's name?
And no, because people.
I want a Brother Johnson or something.
So all of a sudden, everybody is like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just trying to over-communicate. And we're like, yeah, you're really over-communicating to everybody. So Kyle's thing is, yes, if I come into this and I'm like, yep, it's Wilson all the way, Cam Rising's out, blah, 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 blah. We love it because we have news. We can talk about it. That's the way it goes. In 2012, Utah played BYU, and Utah was hurt, and they weren't playing well, and they weren't very good, and BYU was looking great. And they came into that football game at Rice-Eccles Stadium, and all of a sudden we got news, you and I were working together, that John White IV was walking around with a boot around campus. And it was kind of hearsay, but from who I was getting it from, I'm like, they're not just shooting this out there. So I went to practice. And wouldn't you believe it, but Kyle Whittingham had John White IV come out in full uniform when it was time for media availability. And I interviewed him on the record and everything. He was like, yeah, no, I'm great, man. I'm ready to beat these Cougars down and send them out of town. He's like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I had a class. That's all. Ha, ha, ha. And I called your show live. I said, Spence, breaking news. John White IV is going to play. He told me, and we played it on the air and all that. Well, here I am. I'm at a cheesesteak company hosting the pregame show. We get done with it right as the game's going to start, and I look up at the TV, and there's John White IV with no helmet on, no shoulder pads, standing there, not playing in the game.
Yeah.
Kyle did that. And by the way, that was the field storming game. They scratched that win out. Everything matters. Kyle does this for a reason. It's not because he can't be trusted. No.
He's got one job.
He's in competition. When you're in competition, intel and information can be everything.
He's got one job. Now, of course, as the head coach of a college football program, you have several ancillary jobs that are probably a little bit tedious.
Yes.
But look, these coaches, they cannot babysit 118 to 22-year-olds. You have to allocate your energy to things you can control. Kyle's one job is to win, and up until he doesn't believe this is the way to roll because there's not an advantage, or he's told this is the new. And he said this. He said, look, if I am mandated to report, I'll report. But until I am, what are we really even talking about here?
Why would you do that?
But let me say this. I also get the frustration. Now, I'm not a media guy that's like mad that I can't get the info. I don't give a rip. Sometimes guys in our business are like, well, I deserve. All right. It's not about me. It's just I get that if you are a booster, if you are a donor, if you're a season ticket holder, because, look, I've talked to Spencer Hall about this. I've talked to Matt Brown about this. There is donor fatigue going on in college football. It's like, wait, I'm already spending this on season tickets. I've already donated this for the stadium. Now you want me I think it's Tennessee that's charging an extra 10% on their ticket prices so that can go straight to the athlete. At some point, if you're asked to put, because again, Tony, the money changes the conversation. It just does. That's the way the world works. There was always this kind of unspoken and spoken rule that don't crack on a college kid. He's an 18-year-old unpaid, basically being exploited to make other people rich. Don't crack on the kid. But if Cameron Rising's making seven figures to play quarterback at Utah fans in this community are expecting Cameron Rising to play quarterback.
Yeah.
So while I understand your side of it and your points are well taken, and I do believe that Kyle is just doing his job, I can see why other people are frustrated about this.
Yeah, that's why I want the rules to change.
Yeah.
There's too much money involved, the gambling involved, everything like that. I want the rules to change. You have to report injuries, doubtful, questionable, everything, probable, all of it. And there's certain times in the NFL you have to update that. That would be absolutely nice to see. One of my favorite examples everywhere of information was randomly Jimmy Johnson seeing Jim Kelly flip the ball on a backhand towards Thurman Thomas on ESPN report. I think Andrea Kramer, and then all of a sudden in the background you're seeing that. And all of a sudden he calls one of his assistants like, how many times they run the shovel pass? No, they never. So they prepare for the shovel pass. And lo and behold, that's what they were doing. They put it on tape. Right? Yep.
By the way, breaking news, we'll not play the sounder. It's already played out. Utah State is expected to accept the offer from the Pac-12.
Hey!
According to Pete Thamel. What if I told you 5 years ago, Tony, hey, just so you know, in 5 years, Utah and BYU. So 5 years ago, Utah's independent. 5 years ago, Utah's in the Pac-12. 5 years ago, Utah State's in the Mountain West Conference. And I said, hey, Tone, just so you know, 2025, Utah and BYU will be in the Big 12, and Utah State's going to be a Pac-12 charter institution. You would have told me I was nuts. What if I told you this was how it's going to play out?
I told them they don't call them the Conference of Champions for nothing, man.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, it's. I would not believe you at all. At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But at this
crazy.
point, it's like anything that could happen in the future. I'm like, well, I guess it could.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the news cycle is never ending. All right, last thing. BYU is good? Question
Yes.
mark?
Yes.
I mean, I do think Saturday was a perfect combination of extreme fortunate circumstances combined with prepared skill. So, like, you know, and you'll get this. Saturday is a special day. It's the day we get ready for Sunday, right? So I'm talking to my mom, who's back east, and they're watching the BYU game. And I think at the time it was either deadlocked at 3 or it was close in the first half. And she said, I've got to run to the grocery store because we're having dinner tomorrow, so I'm going to run a quick errand. She leaves, goes to the grocery store, comes back, calls me. She's like, what happened? BYU scored 31 unanswered points in 6 minutes and 25 seconds. I'm like, Mom, you can't go to the grocery store, even though I get it. Oxes in the mire, all that stuff. So it really is, in my opinion, an incomplete analysis. I do think they're better than most people thought.
Yes.
Right? Vegas over under 4.5. Pick 13th preseason. They're already at 4. I picked them to win 6. They might have something to say about the Big 12 in a way nobody was really expecting.
I couldn't agree more with you. They're a lot better than I thought. They've been great with a lot of their fundamentals. They're more talented than I thought. And while they are not the best, and I'm not going to pick them to win the Big 12, they're that team that if you do not bring it, you will lose to them. They can beat. There's not a team out there on that schedule they can't beat. Now, I would pick Utah to beat them right now, but there is not a team they cannot beat, and I loved watching that performance. They only had 8 offensive possessions, really, in that game, and they were great. And not to mention, obviously, the special teams explosion and a scoop and score. I mean, that was great, man. That was if you're a BYU fan, you had to be delirious throughout that whole entire experience of watching the explosive plays. So, you know what? Tip of the hat to that staff because while they were picked as low as they were, I didn't agree with. 4.5, I didn't agree with. However, I did not think they'd be 4-0 right away and looking like this.
I thought they'd be a 6-win team. And, well, I mean, I did say last year after they started 3-0, I thought that they could get to 7 or 8 wins. Didn't go that way. So we'll see. Hopefully full health as BYU gets ready for a road trip to Baylor. All right, before we catch a break, we'll welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Hopefully you have all your football ready to roll for the weekend. I've had everything I've wanted, college and pro. Save money, support local, get brand new equipment by dialing 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, thanks so much, Spence. You know, we're all about saving people money and, you know, getting them the very best experience. Right now is the best time, best promotion, killer offer. We've got a massive amount of credits and a promotion that lasts for 2 years and has a price guarantee. And guys, I'll tell you, we've already heard the rate increases that are coming. You're ready for your cable bill to be more or your other TV bills. Guys, everybody's raising their rates, but if you switch right now, you get that price guarantee. We'll get you set up with the world's best DVR, the Hopper. This is a great technology. It has the streaming apps built into it. So you can watch the streaming games and be able to watch regular TV, have the full DVR capability where it auto records your games for you. Plus, it automatically records the locals. And I'll tell you, I love that during this time of the year because all the local channels are just there at your disposal to watch if you want. Otherwise, they'll drop off after 8 days, and you can auto-hop commercials. Great little technology things that Dish has done just to make your life a little better. Call us and we'll throw in the multi-sports pack, which includes a ton of great channels. My favorite, though, is the NFL Red Zone. You get that free for a year. Plus, we'll throw in extra movie channels and have you installed for free as early as next day. Remember, we guarantee the very best price. So if you get a flyer or an offer with a great deal, do not call an 800 number and mess with somebody possibly not even in our country. Call us. We're the local provider. We'll get you that same offer. Plus, we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. And we have half a dozen internet solutions that are fantastic products, super cheap. even some with $200 gift card. Call us, 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it right here on ESPN 700.